Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 Liberty Lake City Council meeting. This is our workshop session. We will go through and do a roll call, and then we'll continue to our agenda, which is the 2025 legislative priorities. So Councilmember Van Orman.
Here.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Ball.
Here.
Councilmember Cargill's here. Councilmember Spencer.
Present.
Councilmember Dunn.
Happy to be here.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Present.
All right, the mayor will join us at the 6 or 7 o'clock session. I beg your pardon. As we mentioned just a moment ago, our workshop session is on the 2025 legislative priorities. So Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If you will look at the page that you have in front of you titled 2025 Legislative Priorities Working Draft, I want to point out there's a section on the back. It's printed front and back. And this is basically a summary of the discussion that we had during the last workshop. Took some opportunity to try to wordsmith some of these to capture the intent I think that was discussed during that workshop. And then really the only thing that has been added that is a material change is on the back section. And this came from Chief Simmons, who's attending the WASPIC conference, and they had a discussion about their legislative priorities. And so it is the bottom bullet in that last section. So the section reads, support legislation creating new funding sources for elements of the criminal justice system. And it's got some items that we have previously discussed. And then the last bullet reads, promote the addition of jails, public defenders, prosecutors, court staff, and diversion programs. And that is essentially a word for word copy and paste from the WASPIC legislative priorities document that they've not finalized yet, but they have narrowed their top priorities down to like 3 with some sub points in there. And so we added that one based on the chief's recommendation. But what I wanted to do tonight is essentially go down this list, reaffirm that these things are agreed to by the council as priorities or not, make any edits that we may need to make, add any priorities that you've thought about between the last workshop and this workshop, and then hopefully put this into a final draft status so we can bring back a resolution during the December 3rd meeting and have you consider it for adoption. And so I sent this out earlier today, and the printed document that you have in front of you is the content is the same. Some of the order has been changed to accommodate the item that I just mentioned that came from Chief Simmons, and to try to group them according to their strategic priorities and our strategic plan. So the order may be a little bit different, but the content is the same.
Mark, can you just quickly take us through this one by one, since folks who are watching online may not have this in front of them?
Absolutely. So if we start at the top, this is an item that we talked about generally during the last workshop. And the language that you'll see here, and it reads, support legislation expanding the allowable uses of REIT 1 and REIT 2 to include restoration projects for all local infrastructure projects. And so this is to tie the priority that we talked about with respect to preservation of infrastructure, specifically to the allowable uses of REIT 1 and REIT 2. And this is coming in part from an AWC priority where they're going to be looking at the language that they use is harmonizing REIT 1 and REIT 2. And we've talked a little bit about that in our budget discussion, not necessarily as a legislative priority, but REIT has certain allowable uses. REIT 1 does, REIT 2 does as well. And so the goal here would be to level those, expand the use, allowable uses, and to free all of that money up potentially for local restoration projects. Infrastructure restoration.
All right, so that's the first bullet point, if you will. Any questions, comments, changes?
I think that's great. It's really clear that, as opposed to just new, we're asking for restoration and support from reline too.
Yes.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2 reads, support legislation expanding reliable and sustainable funding sources for the preservation of local infrastructure and bolstering the Public Works Assistance Account. So it's a little bit different focus, and that is specifically on the Public Works Assistance Account, which could extend beyond pure preservation. It could also include restoration, but it certainly also includes preservation projects. And this would be more maintenance than rebuild. And it's specifically talking about supporting, bolstering is a word we use, the Public Works Assistance Account. This is something where funds are deposited into to be distributed around the state for public works preservation projects.
Any questions, thoughts, comments on that one? Councilmember Kurtz, I can't see you, so if you've got something, just jump in.
No, I don't have anything, but I will if I need to. Thanks.
All right, number 3.
Number 3 is a multi-parter, and it reads, support continued funding for capital projects in the city limits or in adjacent jurisdictions. And it specifically lists the Hub Outdoor Sports Field Complex, the development of the Army National Guard Readiness Center on the DNR site in Liberty Lake, expansion of I-90 between Sullivan and State Line, Barker I-90 interchange project. This is a City of Spokane Valley project specifically, and any road and bridge restoration projects either in the city, we don't have any currently, or in adjacent jurisdictions.
My only comment on this one, Mark, was wondering if we should take the word capital out, because while some of these could be capital projects, others could be transportation projects. And so just to avoid any confusion, I'm just wondering if we can just say funding for projects. in the city.
Strike the word capital.
Capital, yeah.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilmember Kurtz.
I'm wondering too, I don't know if the council is interested in this, but I think that the state line, I don't even know what you call that out there, where it's a 3-way stop or whatever it is now, but I think some people in the community would support our support of funding for that project whenever that might be.
What is, Councilmember Kurtz, can you remind us what that project is?
Well, I don't know if it's even a project, but it's the state line, like 3-way stop where at, like if you're going to Cabela's or you're going to the interstate off of, is it Appleway? Is that right?
Appleway and isn't that State Line
Spokane
Road?
Bridge.
Or Spokane Valley, Spokane.
Yes.
Line.
Where it
Yeah.
comes to a T there is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be supportive of putting that in as well. Councilmember Dunn and then Councilmember Ball.
Annie, I'm trying to recount, is there an active project or a planned project? Is it improvement of that intersection, Appleway and Spokane Bridge Road that you're talking about?
I have no idea, but I think it should be on people's radars for something because it's a bottleneck. So if there's not a current project supporting the idea of a project, I guess I haven't researched it. It just kind of came to my mind when you guys were talking about adjacent jurisdictions. So I didn't have a chance to look through that yet. But Mark, I don't know if you know if WashDOT or the county is doing anything in that area or not.
There's nothing on the current projects list. That doesn't mean they're not contemplating something. I think we can probably talk with the county public works folks and find out if they have anything in the future planned.
So, Annie, I could recount a previously scheduled project which turned a kind of a left sweeping bend from Appleway into the Spokane Bridge Road northbound, including then a T intersection from what would have been West Riverview. That project was a little bit outside the budget for the county, and it was reverted back to a 3-way stop. So there's plans back there. It's just definitely a county-based project. And to my knowledge, they didn't have the funding or the will to be able to put it on.
And it looks like Lisa has her hand up too.
Yes, Lisa. Stand by, Lisa. I think we're trying to promote you to a panelist. Is Lisa trying to talk? Lisa, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk, so maybe you can try to call back in and we can come back to you. Councilmember Ball?
I was just curious, where is this Army National Guard Readiness Center? Where in the process is this?
So this is, so the property is owned by the Department of Natural Resources. There has been an appraisal done on the property in addition to property over near the airport
Right.
with the contemplation of a possible land swap. That the delta between the two values was off by a significant amount. And so there's going to have to be some rework done, re-strategizing done. But in terms of the vision currently still stands that, and that would be to develop this readiness center on that site potentially. And so that is what this is referring to.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, is the Army National Guard, do they want it here or would they prefer to have it out by the airport? What's their position?
So my understanding is that they have outgrown their current facility and the airport is looking to make some changes to expand its footprint.
Mhm.
And so have had some discussions with the guard unit out there, which is what started this whole process.
Oh,
Lisa, you're back, it sounds like. Or maybe not.
Y'all are going to make her drive back.
Well, Lisa, we're still having troubles hearing you, so hopefully we can get connected before we finish this and we can circle back. Councilmember Dunn.
Hey, Mark, on the third bullet, if you could insert words, expansion of traffic lanes on I-90 between Sullivan State Line. We're not asking for ramps or exits or anything. We're just trying to relieve general traffic on that route.
Noted.
Is the council in agreement on putting some wording in here if Mark is able to find on the Spokane Bridge Road / Appleway T project?
I'm seeing in the team's conversation from Lisa, the county has a project in their tip for a roundabout. So this is a noted county project.
Right,
oh,
Okay,
perfect spot for a
Yep.
roundabout.
everybody okay with adding that then?
Yep.
Support for the roundabout? Okay. All right, anything else on the projects in the city limits, number 3 bullet point? All right, number 4, Mark.
Support fully funding the Washington Department of Commerce's Library Capital Improvement Program in the 2025-2027 biennial budget. This is the budget that includes the grant that has been recommended for the city of $937,125 for the library design and construction project.
I think everyone's in agreement on that one. Any comments? Okay,
That's great.
all right, number 5.
Support legislation expanding the allowable uses of lodging tax to promote local tourism. This is one that we talked a little bit about during last Tuesday's budget discussion. So this is a new ad as well. This was, if you'll recall, we were talking about the 3 funds that collect some form of lodging tax, and they do different things with it. The RCW currently limits the use or the distribution of a certain portion of that to nonprofits. And so this isn't designed specifically to change that designation necessarily. It's just targeted at expanding the allowable uses to promote local tourism. It could include that, but it doesn't specifically include that.
Questions, thoughts on number 5?
Makes sense and appreciate it.
All right, number 6.
This is from last year's, if you'll recall, support legislation increasing funding and or expanding access to affordable quality child care.
For sure.
All right, number 7.
And just as a reminder, we consider that to be an economic development driver.
Yep.
Support legislation extending the due date of the Spokane County Periodic Comprehensive Plan update to December 31st, 2026 from June 30th, 2026. And this is not only, we're specifically partnering with the other municipalities and Spokane County in this specific priority, but we are a group of other counties in this cycle, and all of those other counties are going to be doing the same thing. And so we are one of many who are going to have this on our priority.
I think we're all in agreement on that one. Anybody? Okay. Number 8.
Support legislation imposing mandatory minimum sentences for recurring property crime offenders. This one.
Questions, comments, thoughts on that one?
Public safety.
All right. Number 9.
And this was just, and I'm gonna kind of editorialize some of these. This was actually a piece of legislation that Senator Padden introduced last session. So we were keeping an eye on that, and we are supporting it again. Number 9, support legislation imposing mandatory minimum sentences for recurring opioid, particularly fentanyl sellers and or distributors.
I appreciate that one.
Anyone else? Okay. Number 10.
And this is another multi-parter. Support legislation addressing the disconnect between environmental stewardship, building code requirements, and housing affordability. And so it's got some subparts, and I'll go through those individually, and then we can talk about, or as a whole, and we can talk about them individually. So this would include supporting continued condominium reform and other measures promoting home ownership. Support legislation limiting the ownership of single-family residential properties by certain corporate entities. Support legislation allowing alternative methods to meet environmentally sustainable goals contemplated by building code amendments. Oppose legislation increasing taxes for the purposes of funding affordable housing, and maybe that should say exclusively or something like that. Oppose new building code regulations that lead to cost of construction increases. And oppose legislation aimed at limiting energy supply options or increasing energy costs.
All right. So this one is 6 different bullets. So comments, questions? Yes, Councilmember Ball.
On bullet number 2, Mark, support legislation limiting the ownership of single-family residential properties by, can we eliminate certain?
We could, I'd like to hear, we can do anything that the council decides to do. I would like to hear others' feedback on that.
Councilmember Spencer. I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. Councilmember Spencer, did you want to comment on that, Councilmember Ball?
Well, I just think that all corporate entities should be limited on picking up single-family homes.
Okay, Councilmember Spencer.
I would support removing this bullet point altogether.
Okay.
I
Councilmember
appreciate the
Dunn?
word certain because I think that there's a specific reference to the types of ownership we're trying to restrain. I believe that there are some forms of corporate ownership that were actually, I'd say, don't damage or create inhibition to ownership amongst families. So, yeah, I'd retain the word certain.
Council members Kurtz, Kennedy, Van Orman. Councilmember Kurtz, do you have anything you want to add on this one?
Well, I wanted to see if we need to be more specific about the word certain. If we're trying to be specific, maybe we should be specific. But then also curious to hear from Councilmember Spencer about why he would support removing that, because I'm curious to just know what that what his perspective is.
Councilmember Spencer.
Sure. I think just from a standpoint of promoting economic development and business in our city, limiting what corporations can purchase on behalf of employees that perhaps they are going to be flying in and staying in corporate housing for a period of time. I think that's just a pro-business to remove that.
I'm going to speak in favor of either modifying it or removing it. And the 2 words that are giving me heartburn here are the words limiting and certain, because I don't know exactly, anyone could take those 2 words very differently. And so either I think we need to get really specific on this one, or I think we need to remove it. I mean, what is the definition in this case of limiting? Does that mean it can't be done? Does that mean it can only be done half the time? Does that mean it can only be done a third of the time? And then I would agree with Councilmember Dunn's point about certain, not all corporate entities. I don't think we want to ban. I mean, there are some corporate entities, as Councilmember Spencer points out, who may have these houses for purpose of the workforce or
Sure.
something. So, Mark, do you have thoughts on how we can either make it more specific or something else?
Yeah, I think the challenge here is that there are a lot of model pieces of legislation in other states. And they run the spectrum. And so, and I know you know this, but just as a reminder, we're not proposing a piece of legislation here, right? We're saying these are our priorities. And so I think the reason that these words were chosen, and they can be modified to say whatever the council desires them to say, is to say that we want to make something a priority. We probably don't know exactly what that is because the state really hasn't proposed anything at this point. And so maybe the answer is waiting until the state proposes something, and then making a decision as to whether we want to make that our priority. But I think based on the last discussion, we were talking about, hedge funds and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
My concern with trying to define those is that you almost have to exhaustively define a list of things. And I don't know that we want to do that.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Particularly, is this more council city generated or HOA? The idea?
It's,
As I know at HOA, our largest one you have has addressed this over the years, concern about restricting that. So I wasn't sure.
I've not personally spoken with anyone affiliated with an HOA about this. It could be that they would support this or have similar concerns, but I haven't, and I'm not aware that anybody on the team has spoken with anyone from an HOA.
Yeah, it was probably about 3 years ago that the HOA, this is one of the things that they discussed quite a bit. They were concerned about having in the HOA individuals where somebody owned it outside the area and was renting it out, trying to control that. It's something that didn't go any further with the HOA because it came down to it. They weren't sure how would they police it? How would they monitor it? So just curious.
Mark, at the last meeting we had, somewhat related to this, we talked about the possibility of trying to get information on how many, if any, houses in the city are owned by corporations. Were we able to find that out?
Kyle, were we able to get any data from the assessor on that?
Not that we have heard back on, so we'll keep you posted.
And this is not specifically, that I can recall, listed in the AWC list. The reason I can tell you, recalling the conversations that we had during the process of finalizing the state legislative priorities for AWC, there is some legislation happening in British Columbia, but as you can imagine, and it's probably less impactful on this side of the state than it is on the west side of the state, but you have corporate ownership of housing that then turns around and rents and controls prices. And you see this price escalation happening. And that's really what and I'm talking about AWC, that's what AWC is focused on from a prioritization perspective. And so if this needs, if this one isn't ready for prime time, or if we need to do some additional work between now and potentially including this for adoption or propose some different language, we can certainly do that.
Pro Tem?
Yes, Councilmember Kurtz.
I think it seems like from our past discussion that this is more related to housing affordability. And so I'm wondering if we sort of narrow that scope instead of trying to use the words limited and certain. I think maybe focusing more on the language around affordability and the correlation between corporate ownership, if there's a way to do that. And I don't know how that sits with everybody else.
I agree that the objective is to address affordability. So,
What about if we changed the words of this to, instead of saying support legislation limiting the ownership, we say support a review or something of that effect of the ownership of single family residential properties by corporate entities? Because it seems like we're all kind of saying, well, what exactly does this mean? Does it, would it apply here or there? How many people in our city have it? So I'm wondering if instead of saying legislation limiting, we should ask first for a legislative review or a state review of this issue. And then maybe if the review comes back and it says that this is a huge problem that we need to address, then we can support it in the next session.
We can certainly do that, Councilmember Kennedy,
No, I'm sorry.
No.
You were talking.
please.
I guess with that, the challenge I'm having is with the word certain, because I think it opens up to interpretation. My interpretation might be different than Mark's or somebody else, that support legislation limiting the ownership of single-family resident properties by corporate entities is one thing. But to say certain, I think it opens up further discussion of no end.
You'd also attempt to attack it from the positive direction. So instead of trying to say limit corporate ownership, we could promote single family ownership by single families or something like that. And so you can consider, both of those options.
I appreciate the wording suggestion. If you want to try and provide another run at it in that positive phrasing, that might be better to consider.
Is anyone opposed to that?
No, definitely support.
Okay. All right, so we can review that one again when we come back. Mark, is that all right?
Absolutely.
Anything else on the 6 bullet points under 10?
Mark, I have one other suggestion in the sentence prior to the bulleting. I'd like to use the word support legislation addressing the connection between environmental stewardship, building code and requirements. What we're asserting is that all of these are mutually important and have to be accomplished together.
Dan, which one are you on? The third one?
The actual sentence prior to the bullet, the bullet. The word disconnect to me is confrontational or asserts that they are mutually exclusive. I believe all of these are important in establishing building codes.
And Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah, Councilmember Kurtz.
I had, I guess in a similar vein with what Councilmember Dunn just said, I wanted to see if we could frame these more in the positive because I support the idea of affordable housing, reducing costs of construction, and the last one there where we don't want to increase energy costs, but at the same time, I also support energy efficiency. So if there's a way to have some wording around there about and I had this better in my head before I'm talking now, but basically supporting energy efficiency, but not at the expense of, well, the other expenses of construction costs, if that makes sense. And I'm sure somebody could wordsmith that better than I'm saying at the moment.
Can you work on those, Mark, and bring them back at the next
Absolutely.
meeting?
We can wordsmith these and come back with some options.
Okay. Anything else on that? Yeah. Lisa, are you with us? Strike
Can you
3.
hear me now?
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, it took some acrobatics with my settings to get here, but
Did you want to add anything, Lisa, about we got your message about the roundabout under number 3. Anything else you wanted to add on any of these?
no, that was the main point is that there is a project that we should be supporting.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Kennedy.
Second from the bottom, there oppose new building code regulations that lead to cost of construction increases. I believe any new building code is going to increase the cost. What if we entertain the idea of take out new, oppose building code regulations that lead to cost of construction increases? I think that will do is that any existing regulations could be looked at as it creating increase in cost instead of just limiting it to new.
Any comments on that?
So
All right, so lots of work to do under number 10.
if I can make just one comment, and maybe this helps, maybe it doesn't. And Lisa, please weigh in on this if you'd like to. I guess the concern I would have is that building code amendments often counterbalance, meaning as many help to lower cost as help to or contribute to increasing costs. And so we want to be careful not to unduly affect building safety, while at the same time acknowledging that there are some legitimate alternative methods that are available, and we've addressed that in another priority. And really what we're talking about here is the energy component. And so maybe we need to say that.
Maybe, yeah, okay, good point. Maybe we should, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
maybe we should put in there, we're referring to energy.
Good.
Yeah, that will help.
All right, anything else on 10? I know these aren't numbered, but, okay, number 11.
Support legislation providing local governments flexibility in implementing Growth Management Act provisions to account for local conditions.
So this was one, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but we wordsmithed this one a little bit from the last meeting, is that right?
A bit,
Yeah.
and this is also a holdover from last year's list. But Lisa and I talked a bit about this, and, you know, some of the concerns with getting more specific is that the Growth Management Act is so dense that where do you start? Really, what we're driving at here is working with the legislature to allow local governments to implement in a way that benefits the locality.
Any questions, comments, thoughts on that one? All right, number 12.
Oppose legislation of any kind whereby unfunded mandates are established.
That one's a pretty simple one. And then do you want to go over 13 again, Mark, or you already kind of went over it at the beginning, so
It's up to you. Tell me if.
anybody want to talk about 13? Okay, I think we're good on 13.
Okay.
One item that I was going to recommend, and I'm not sure how exactly we want to word this, but I know not everyone can see what this says, but this is an article from Cairo that just came out in the past couple of weeks about new motorhome sales in Washington could be banned as of January 1st. And with so much of our city revenue coming from the sales of motorhomes, it seems to me that we should say something in our legislative priorities list about this. The issue specifically impacts large class motorhomes and large trucks powered by diesel or gasoline. And the reason is because the legislature a couple of years ago tied our emissions to the California standards. Whether you agree or disagree with that, that could have the potential of having a huge economic impact on our city. So I'm not exactly sure how we go about labeling this, but I'm wondering if it's something we should say something about. And I can pass this around if anybody needs it.
Mayor Pro Tem, what was
Yeah.
the date of that article?
November 15th.
15, okay.
A couple of days ago.
All right.
And apparently no one really knew this was going to happen until October, I think it says October 23rd in there or
Yeah,
something,
right.
when they met and California increased theirs. So automatically, according to the law, we follow California. And as a result, this could have quite the impact.
And I suspect they were waiting for the results of the election. And I can't remember the number. Was it 2117? If that would have.
Well, I
down.
think this is separate from that, completely separate, because we had already as a state adopted the California emission standards and
outside of the
outside of
other.
that.
Okay, got it.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I believe in that article, if I remember correctly, it just affected the new,
Correct,
it doesn't affect the used
correct.
market. Yeah. Fortunately for the area we live in, compared out to the United States, RV sales in our area is predominant travel trailers and fifth wheels. And that relates back to our particular part of the country we live in. Most people have a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
And it falls into that category. Motorhome sales is not as predominant as it is in other parts of the country, such as Arizona, California.
Sure. With us having so many RV establishments in the city,
Yeah.
if we didn't have a lot, that would be, one thing, but since we do, yes, Councilmember Kennedy.
I do feel what would be advantageous to all of us if we could have Kyle to look at the numbers, if we can get this from the RV dealerships, what kind of percentage that they sell in new motorhomes and stuff. That'll give us some idea how that might affect us financially.
And I don't know much about motorhomes, but from what I understand, it's a Class C motorhome, which I guess is one of the big guys
Yeah.
that is over 8,000 pounds or something. So the article is going around, and we may just want to consider something when it comes back.
Yeah, we can do some additional research.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilmember Kurtz.
Did that article, I read that article as well, but I thought there was also some reference in there to like trucks too. Was it just
Yes.
specific to RVs and Class C, or was it like diesel trucks, which
Trucks as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
that would have a big impact with as far as like who takes our groceries to the store and back, right? Like, so I think that if I thought I recalled that being in there, but I think that that could have a bigger impact than just the RV stuff.
Correct. Yeah, I think so too.
I'll just chime in here.
Yeah,
This
Councilor.
paragraph says the new rules apply to vehicles with more than 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight, impacting most RVs, medium to heavy duty trucks and interstate tractor trailers. So I think we're talking about a lot more than just motorhomes.
Councilmember Kennedy.
One company that locally here that'd be affected quite a bit by that is our Mercedes dealership. Because if you go by their lot, you will see that they sell a lot of the trucks with the diesel engines, more so than gas.
Which one was that? The Mercedes? Is that what you said?
Pardon?
Which dealership?
The Mercedes
Oh,
dealership.
okay.
And there was one article, I haven't seen it in every one, but there was one that said specifically that, Chevy Silverados or other big trucks that, are like the 3,500 or 2,500 series are also potentially, to Councilmember Kurtz's point, impacted by this.
So we would have some in our own fleet that could be impacted.
Yeah.
I'm just going to start walking.
Anything else on the legislative priorities? All right, we will adjourn until 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Very good.
We're gonna. Okay, welcome everybody to our Tuesday, November 19th City Council meeting. I've lost my agenda. Good thing I've got a hard copy here. Thank you. We are gathered here for a regular meeting. Thanks everybody for being here for the 6 p.m. workshop. We are going to go ahead and start 7 p.m. with the invocation given by Mayor Pro Tem Cargill, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me.
Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the opportunity to come together this evening as a community to do the business of the city. And we ask for your blessing on this meeting that we can come to agreement and get the citizens' work done. And we ask for these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:01, and we'll move on to roll call. Councilmember Van Orman. Here. Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Let me find my Zoom. There we go. Councilmember Ball. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Cargill.
Present.
Councilmember Spencer.
Present.
Councilmember Dunn.
Happy to be here.
And Councilmember Kennedy.
Present.
All right, everybody's present and accounted for, and I can see Councilmember Kurtz this time. So if she needs to speak, I will see her raise her hand. So we are going to go ahead to agenda approval. Are there any requests for changes to the agenda? Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. I propose we change under 10E to 11 under action item.
Okay, so you'd like you're motioning to move general business E to 11, I'm assuming F.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any, no discussion, sorry, it's agenda. All right, so those in favor of moving general business 10E to 11F, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Are there any other requested changes to the agenda? Okay, not hearing any.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Ball. All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we are up to citizen comments. For those of you who are in chambers, we have a yellow half sheet over by the windows over there. If you could please fill that out and get it turned into our city clerk, lovely young lady over here at the end of the table. She will get it to me. If there's anybody online who'd like to make a comment, please send a note to our meeting host in the chat feature. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes, any topic. We just ask that you remain respectful and introduce yourself and let us know if you are a resident of in the city limits or not. So do we have anybody in chambers? Okay, do we have anybody online? Nope, okay. Just a reminder that we will have a chance at the end of the meeting for additional citizen comments and.
Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt, but I do have written comments
Oh,
to
hold on.
acknowledge too.
I'll get there. And there will be a citizen comment period after the second read ordinance in number 15. So with that, I will turn it over to Kelsey because we did have some written comments sent in that were distributed to the council.
So we received a written public comment from Trent Mayer regarding partnerships with GSI and Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce. Additionally, we received written public comments regarding the Trailhead Restaurant proposals from Garrett Garner, Jessica Garner, Ryan Hosade, Jerry Katz, Nancy McKelvey, Krista Larson, Guadalupe Owen, Carly Lee, Chelsea Hunnell, Stephen Rhodes, Jenny and Gary Tomlinson, Jennifer Agnew, Mei-Ling Bell, Karen Alexander, Jackie Babin, Kimberly Middleton, and Craig Smith. And I'll note that those were all regarding the trailhead proposal. Of the 17, 15 were in favor of Saranac and 2 were in favor of Chavalitas.
Great, thank you. And one more chance. Is there anybody in chambers or online? Okay, not hearing any, we will move on to announcements, proclamations, and special presentations. First up, we have GSI. Thanks for joining us, Gary and Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of council for inviting us in tonight. I'm Gary Blue. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development. I'm joined by Lisa Lewis, who's our Vice President of Resource Development. We also have Trent Meyer in the audience, who is on our executive board and is the Vice Chair of the RAC, which is the Regional Advocacy Committee. Oh, hey, I got it right. Hey, feeling good about that. I just wanted to say thank you, and especially want to thank the council for their leadership, because last time I was here, I didn't do a great job tying in the work to GSI into the citizens and the businesses of Liberty Lake. So much so that I had one of the members of the audience come up to me afterwards and he said, "Hey, young feller, next time you might want to put a little Liberty Lake in your slides." And I said, that's a good idea, sir. So, but I did want to thank you because you moved forward on the contract then, and I wanted to thank you for inviting us back. So with that, let's go ahead and if we could go to the next slide. And we're going to talk about the partnership, Liberty Lake's partnership with Greater Spokane Inc. So Liberty Lake is an economic development partner via contract with GSI. And 2/5 of that contract, so the contract's going to build, so 2/5, the first 2/5 is membership. And that's what I asked Lisa to come in and talk about. And then 3/5 is the economic development program itself. And so that's what I'm going to focus on during the presentation here. And we can go to and I did want to point out, so I think at 6 p.m., did you have a workshop in talking about your legislative agenda? So it's great that Trent has joined us because given his role on the RAC, if there's any questions you have regarding our legislative agenda, I'm sure Trent can help on that. So with that, I'd like to ask for the next slide and turn it over to Lisa.
Good evening. Thanks for having us, Mayor and council members. I want to just thank you for your long partnership. As the city of Liberty Lake, we have all the surrounding cities as partners of ours, and we recognize you and talk about you in various aspects as civic partners of the work that we do as important aspects of everything that's happening within our community. GSI is more than what people would be familiar as a chamber. We're also the ADO for our county. So in addition to being the county's chamber, we also represent the Associated Development Organization for the county, which is something that's designated to us by the state entity and the region itself, which Gary's going to talk more about economic development. So you'll really get a chance to dive into that. We have 700 partners. We have just over 20 that are located in Liberty Lake itself. I know we have a few of our partners here who are talking after us, as well as Trent and others. We have a lot of partnerships as well. We just had the Liberty Lake Splash that joined us as partners to try to expand their reach. And we feature many activities and events that are happening here as well. I know, Mayor, that you've been to a couple of ribbon cuttings within the last 4-ish months. It kind of blends all together. So there are a lot of parts and pieces that are happening. There are benefits as being a partnership that are very logistical in nature, which is typical to a chamber. So just similar to that work, the event discounts that you have access to, posting jobs that there's access to, calendars, et cetera. So that is part of membership. You also have the ability at your level to be able to access a mailing list. So should the city of Liberty Lake want to reach out to the community or the community of GSI family, you would have access to that as well. So just some logistical pieces. There is a lot that's always happening. We have 3 pillars of work. Gary's going to talk about economic development. I'm just going to hit on a little bit of our public policy, which Trent is a part of, which we spoke to a little bit just before me. And then also education and talent, otherwise known as our workforce. And those are the 3 areas we're focusing in on all the time as a part of the work that we do at GSI. So just hitting really quickly so we can get on with other parts and pieces, but public policy is a big part of our work. It's a big investment and important to us. We work year round with businesses to create what is Spokane County's agenda, going both to Olympia as well as Washington, D.C. And then, of course, we're the champions, always herding conversations and priorities locally as well. This year, most recently, we, as a part of feedback, we propped up an online election center website, as well as the Pulse survey. So if you haven't seen the Pulse survey, make sure to go online to GSI's website and take a look at that. That is sort of the first part of what will be future surveys that will come out that's able to provide a snapshot of what our decision-making opinions and thoughts about voters in our county, and run and by an external entity that can provide that feedback to all of us. With all of that being said, I know that Trent's going to be able to share our agenda once it's made public, but there are a lot of things that we're always working on for the community. Just wanted to touch base on a few. We've worked on the Teacher and Nursing Compact over the last few years, providing access to those who move into our community, into the state of Washington, to be teachers and nurses, even though they're coming to other states. And that was something that we'd worked on many, many years related to nursing, and just recently got nursing and teachers passed, and now we're looking at school psychologists. Also, as you know, last year there was a cut in budget around the North-South corridor. And so we had a lot of interaction with Olympia to get that continued to push through and really protecting overall funding for transportation in our area. And lastly, one of the pieces that we're looking at in this next year has to do with tax credits between office and residential conversions, really needed in downtown to expand housing operations or opportunities. So just really quick snapshot. Want to tell you thank you again, and I'll pass it back to Gary for more information. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I know the City of Liberty Lake supports our former and active duty military, and I wanted to highlight the importance of the teacher and the nursing compact to our active duty military. So a lot of our airmen at Fairchild have a following spouse, and many of those spouses have credentials in other states to teach, and they have the credentials to be a nurse. So by getting that compact, it allows those credentials to carry over here. So during their 2 years that they're going to be here in the region, those spouses can now work in those industries with the credentials they have and not have to go through a very lengthy process. It's probably not worth it if you can only be here 2 years. So it helps our health industry, helps our schools, helps the active duty military. We can go to the next slide. Just quick note on the education and talent side. Just some things specifically. So they held a college and career for the Army and National Guard at the MODE, which is here in Liberty Lake. They did that in concert with the Educational Service District 101. They also worked with ESD 101 on supporting the Liberty Launch Academy. So some of the private schools do have resources that they can access at ESD 101, so making sure they are able to connect to those. Business after school programs, that's one of the pictures here. I think that's Wagstaff, if I'm not mistaken, which the Central Valley School District students can attend and learn about career opportunities, and they assist area employers with access to talent. That could be doing career connected learning through the schools, student attainment to make sure people are getting their high school graduation, but going on to the next level as well, and then addressing barriers to talent access like childcare. So next slide. Oh, and there was a typo in that. I think I had with. Yeah, sorry, I missed that one. Lisa mentioned we are the ADO Associate Development Organization. That's how Washington State does economic development. It spreads it down to the county level. That was actually started in the Booth Gardner administration. Why they chose associate versus economic, which would have made more sense. I couldn't tell you, but so we are the state designated ADO. The dollars that the state spends with us has to be matched by local dollars. And that is part of what this economic development program and what you're a partner in supports. And in those, I want to highlight, there's 4, we do a lot of stuff, but 4 I want to kind of highlight is our business retention expansion work, recruiting, innovation economy, and some things we can do specifically as the ADO that other organizations can't do. And we can go to the next slide. So under our business retention expansion, that's connections with businesses. So here are some of our connections in 2024 with Liberty Lake businesses. Premier Manufacturing, we highlighted in our Connect newsletter. Premier, and we'll actually talk about the innovation economy, but they serve the energy, medical, and telecommunications industry, which are also part of our innovation economy and our target sectors that we're looking to grow in. And this is a picture of Premier Manufacturing. Just a couple local businesses, Air with Flair and BKG Aerial Imagery. They were new members highlighted in our social media. I attended a ribbon cutting in Spokane for another business where they used learned about Air with Flair, used that. So it's great for them to make those B2B connections. Alltech Inc. we connected with regarding internships. We've already talked about Trenton Trailbreaker Cider. It's just a good excuse to go drink some cider. Your next presenter, Univision Computers, who's a new business here, and we did ribbon cutting. And then Swiss Productions, and we'll talk about them a little bit throughout, but they're a relatively new business. Liberty Lake came in about 2020, relocated from the LA area. Interesting business, manufacturing firm, make very small parts. A lot of family members in that business, and they all relocated from LA. So we can go next slide. So this is just some talk about our some of the recruitment. The imagery there is really about the grind that is recruitment. It is a long arc for a recruitment program. It takes from first connection with a company, roughly 5 years. to actually see that lead come to fruition. We've been doing COVID stopped everything. And so we restarted the program coming out of COVID. So we've been doing it for about 3 years. We'll actually talk about a win we've had, which is good. So it's a little bit ahead of that 5-year cycle, but highlight the former Comcast facility, which is a plug and play data center here in Liberty Lake. We did submit that for, it was a statewide project called Project Dominic. But it was looking for a plug and play call center. And I think in my 4 years here, we've submitted that probably like we've had 3 different opportunities where leads have come in looking for a plug and play call center. We haven't been successful in any of those, but we keep plugging them and playing away at it. Sorry, pun intended, I guess. Can we go next slide? This is just what Liberty Lake, some of the information you can get on the Advantage Spokane website. So when that site is really targeted towards site selectors, which are commercial real estate folks that help businesses make location decisions. But they can come in, look at Liberty Lake, grab information on particular properties that are available in Liberty Lake. But through that GIS system, also pull up GIS data that's available from the county, could be zoning, but they also then supply demographic data. So it gives folks an opportunity to look at at specifically the properties around Liberty Lake. And we can go next slide. So on the innovation economy, this is, and it's actually from our GIS planning site, but the dots represent companies within Liberty Lake that are within kind of our 4 sectors here of clean tech, energy, advanced manufacturing, information technology, and life science. And what I've tried to do here is in those bullets, talk about the sector, talking about an initiative we're working on, an example of a company here in Liberty Lake that could benefit from that initiative. But you can see, I had somebody say to me, oh, Liberty Lake, they're a bedroom community. I was like, no, they're not. There's a lot of manufacturing. There's a lot of businesses in Liberty Lake. So if we look at, like, say, the clean tech energy side, Intent was a for-profit public purpose corporation created by Avista and Urbanova. It was a National Science Foundation engine, which was an initiative that came out of the CHIPS and Science Act. Certainly, I think Itron was a partner with Intent, one of the partner companies. Advanced Manufacturing, the AAMMC is the Advanced Aerospace Materials Manufacturing Center. And I didn't want to spell that all out in the slide because I really didn't have room for it. They were a designated tech hub, and they're really working in that. And the tech hub is, again, a Economic Development Administration funded initiative. It was also funded through the CHIPS and Science Act. So that would be companies like Alltech, Acrofab, who are also in that aerospace. Now, while this focused on composite materials, which are not, they do, Alltech and does a little bit of that. But it would grow the aerospace, the entire manufacturing aerospace sector here, and bring further expertise into the area. And you actually, I think, have 4 or 5 aerospace companies here in Liberty Lake. On the information technology side, we work with a group called Launchpad that is really trying to work across the innovation economy, but also on that IT area. We graduate a lot of students in the area in IT, and they mostly go to the Puget Sound because we didn't have the opportunities for them here. That's starting to change. We're starting to take a leadership role in cybersecurity. We're seeing a lot more information technology workers, some of them remote, but many of them with companies here. And that supports a company like you're going to talk to a little bit later, Univision Computers. And then life sciences, we have Evergreen Bio, and that's a state-funded innovation cluster. And that was one, they've worked with several companies, but Swiss Production, as we got connected with them, joined Evergreen Bio because a lot of the things they manufacture are in the medical device arena, and they're a supplier to the medical device industry, so looking to make connections. Next slide. Then just a quick highlight on the Evergreen Biosciences. Last week, they held their Founders, Funders, and Friends. That was at the Mode. That was presentations by 4 high-growth potential companies. And I wanted to talk about that win we have. So Remy Health, and that's Jane Zen in the lower left-hand corner there, the CEO and founder of Remy. And it's a device that will connect. So her son had a lot of ear infections, and so she was looking for a better way. So this is going to help fill in rural telemedicine. But I met her in Seattle as part of our recruitment activities, told her all the great things that we had in the region. She has now was awarded an HSSA, which is I won't get the acronym right, so I'm not going to do it, but it's a program that will match life science company funding with public funding, and it's only in Spokane County, so it's a unique opportunity we have here. So she will be moving or expanding her company here in Spokane as we got connected, and she was one of the presenters, one of the high growth potential companies at the Founders, Funders, and Friends. So great opportunity. She's a small company, but has really an opportunity to grow, and she'll be manufacturing those devices here. And then next slide. And then some of the ADO specific things. So the Strategic Reserve Fund is a governor's directed fund. The application has to come from the ADO to the state for that funding. So we use that. It's our closing fund. It's not huge, but it averages around $250,000 to $400,000 in the awards. But it's for when we're trying to recruit a company in or retain a company here. The last time we used it in Liberty Lake was 6-7 years ago with Acrofab, who was looking to relocate potentially. So we were able to retain them here in Liberty Lake. And we did also pursue it for Swiss Productions. It didn't get submitted to the state, and it was before my time, so I'm not really sure why that is, but we had prepared an application to try to bring them in. And again, that's an ADO specific, as well as the Evergreen Manufacturing Growth Grant. That is managed through Commerce. That's intended to help grow manufacturing businesses here, as well as clusters. So we were successful in partnering with West Valley School District, and then Wade Larson, who works with Wagstaff and also has his own company. But we'll be creating at the West Valley School District a manufacturing center for students to learn about the manufacturing industry and try to give them that pipeline and experience to get in and feed the manufacturing community. The ERC fellow, somebody we were able to acquire. We were able to acquire a fellowship in partnership with Coeur d'Alene EDC. They're working in the creative economy. They're just starting, so we're trying to get them out into the community at large. But if you are having something in that creative economy, we have a resource that you can utilize. And then last one, this was the Grant Writer Grant, which sounds kind of weird, but the state put some money towards ADOs to hire grant writers and then pursue grants and ADOs. And we were successful in getting some of those dollars. We were in partnership with other counties on that. But here in Spokane County, we only worked with our economic development partners. So Liberty Lake, Spokane County, City of Spokane Valley, and Air Ray Heights. And in that phase 1, we had a really short timeline. Won't get into why, but we identified 4 federal grants, 2 state grants, 9 foundation grants for Liberty Lake. Phase 2, I have some good indications that we'll get funded for phase 2. So we'll have about 6 months to actually apply for those grants that were identified. So, and that grant writer will begin, and we'll do the same sort of thing we did last time. So with that, thank you. And I probably went over time, but I appreciate it.
All good information. Trent, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know we got your email.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now we'll open up to questions. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Gary, just to, following up on a question that I've asked every year for the past couple of years. You probably know which question it is going to be. What is the fee for all the other cities as well? So my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that every city pays the same fee.
The membership portion is the same it's a class of membership.
Right.
And that class of membership is a certain price, and each city that we're partners with hits that class of membership.
So
first.
that's the $10,000 fee.
That's the 10,000-ish.
Okay.
The county actually is at a different class of membership, so they're a higher amount.
Okay, so that has always been my main concern, is that our citizens have to pay so much more per citizen than a city like Spokane Valley or Spokane. I mean, in Spokane Valley, and again, these numbers are pretty small, but in Spokane Valley, they're only paying about 9 cents per citizen. City of Spokane is 4 cents per citizen, whereas in our city, it's 77 cents per citizen. So that's always been my heartburn about this, is that, because we're so much smaller, we still have to pay the same amount for that base membership fee as the big cities do. So thank you.
No, and it's true and valid, and it would be true for a business as well. So a smaller business that was at that class of membership would pay the same as a bigger business. But it's a good point.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Gary or Lisa while they're here? Go ahead,
I
Councilmember
just
Dunn.
appreciate the insight and the understanding of GSI and its efforts, and specifically its approach to Liberty Lake. I recognize from my experience that it's not a lot that our city could do with these kind of, the amount of resources we have to get the kind of impact that GSI is able to deliver. So I'm grateful for the insight.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Kurtz, any questions from you?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And we'll continue to have discussions, and I believe we'll have the contract back in front of the council before the end of the year, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly work with Mark on that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Gary.
All right. Well, next up, I'd like to invite Alex and Scott from Univision Computers. I first met them at the ribbon cutting, which is about 5 doors down from my office at my day job office, and keep running into each other everywhere. So they just wanted to, have a minute to introduce their business, what they do, and I wanted to give us a chance to welcome Univision to Liberty Lake. So,
all right. Yeah, I'll say, I appreciate you guys giving us some time here to talk to you. I think this is an awesome thing. I'm actually from Missoula. Scott is here in Spokane. And, so I talk kind of from my experiences in, the Missoula area and the other, kind of communities that we do business in. And I mean, I have to say Spokane, Liberty Lake, and all of you guys over here have a very pro-business mindset, which is really, really refreshing, to see. So I'll introduce Scott. So Scott is, Alex, I'm the CEO. Scott is our local sales rep, business development rep in this area. I guess I'll give you just a quick spiel about Univision. So we're an IT company. We provide IT services to businesses and organizations. We do managed services. We do voice over IP. So we do phone systems, cybersecurity, data center, cloud hosting, and things like that. So that's kind of what we do. We started in Missoula. That's where our headquarters is located. We've grown our business to include multiple offices in Western Montana. And about 2-3 years ago, we knew that we wanted to kind of move over into, this area. And we thought, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, this general vicinity was a really good strategic move, for our business. When we decided to kind of move this area, we looked at the different communities that we could potentially locate, our offices. So we looked at, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane, and, ultimately we settled on Liberty Lake. And, we did for a couple reasons. One, it came off as a very nice, kind of clean community. And we really wanted to find a place that our employees would like to work. So Liberty Lake kind of, fit that bill. We also met a lot of nice people. The mayor, we actually do business with Tier Point. That's actually how we got introduced, initially, which was kind of funny. But we actually had an employee want to move over here from our Missoula office, and he subsequently did. We started out with one employee. We are up to 4 total right now in Liberty Lake. And we are probably going to add another one here fairly soon. In fact, we're expanding, we're going to upgrade to a little bit larger office because we need more space as it is. So I think that's kind of a testament to what we've got going on. Additionally, our management team has talked a lot about, kind of where do we grow our staff. And, we have really thought heavily about probably doing a decent amount of that here in Liberty Lake for, some of the reasons I just explained earlier, but also because the talent pool, there's a very, sizable talent pool in the IT, industry here. Lots of good educational resources for them to kind of get their skills up to par. And so we're really looking forward to kind of growing our business and our footprint. And, for right now, we're going to stay in Liberty Lake because I think it's the right place for us to be. So, and I don't know if you want to add anything, Scott, but.
Yeah, I would like to say that the time that I've been with Univision has been a short time. It's been about a year. I left from a different industry and came to find Univision quite fortuitously, and I love this industry. And I've been with my family here in Spokane for about 10 years. And we really feel good about where we're at and with Univision and where we're here in Liberty Lake. And I believe that this is a great spot for us. And this slideshow should have been moving. There's 4 or 5 slides that should have been sort of on a time thing. There's a little more information, but in total, we've got 46 employees, many of which are in Missoula. We've got, Alex mentioned, we have 4 brick and mortar offices, including here. A lot of other things that'll come up on these slides, but you want to talk about the national footprint real quick and kind of see where we're, a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's a good point. So when we talk about growing our kind of like presence here in Liberty Lake, I mean, it's more than just adding employees to serve the local community. IT can be done very effectively, kind of in a remote capacity. And so, we can bring on staff here to serve the needs of our clients in other areas. And, we've got a fairly decent national client base now. A lot of clients have offices kind of all over the country. So I think that opens up a lot of opportunity as well for, staff and opportunity for people looking for IT careers, here in this area. So. But.
Well, we're happy to have you. You guys have any questions?
Welcome to the community. Great to have you part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate you.
Information, I'll give it to the city clerk and you can hand that out to your staff.
Sounds great. We really appreciate you guys taking the time. And I know we'll get together tomorrow, the next day while you're in town.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Topic. Thank you so much, you guys. All right. We are up to reports and inquiries. Do we have any city council reports? Councilmember Kennedy.
I do, Mayor. Thank you. As most individuals know, that unfortunately we lost Craig Howard within the last week or so. Craig was an employee of the Splash. He did a lot of reporting and stuff, but even more important than that, Craig was a friend to the city of Liberty Lake. Craig Howard was an individual that has undoubtedly been to more council meetings than any other individual. I can remember back as far as 2005 coming to a council meeting. I sat in the back row and Craig Howard always sat right there. And he was at every single council meeting that was there. And it got to the point because of health issues within his family, he started watching the video and still giving reports. And I find it a testament to his stick-to-itiveness to want to sit through 2 or 3 hours of video so he can give a report. But with that in mind, the thing that hit me the most is that how can we perpetuate his memory? And for me, it was being able to start a fund. We've started a Craig Howard Memorial Fund, and it's set up through Washington Trust. And what we're going to use the funds for is initially we're going to select a park bench, which is be predominantly placed within the city of Liberty Lake. My recommendation, I hope the council will go along with it when it comes up, is to place it here at City Hall, the most prominent position it could be. What we're going to be able to do is purchase the bench, and then all proceeds we collect after that goes directly to the family. Now, Craig was very much involved with Family of Promise, which is a good organization. And they've also set up an organization or a fund there that the funds will go to the children. So there's two funds. The recommendation is if you feel like you want to donate to it, donate to either one. It's great. The benefit we see with the park bench is it will perpetuate. I know my own self when I was at, I gave this story today when I was at Rotary. Our daughter, we put a bench in some years ago over here in the Arboretum. And each year, at least one or two times, somebody will get a hold of me or say something and say, is that your daughter's, the bench is there? And I'll say, yes, it is. And the thing that it does is it perpetuates for memory. And the bench, what that will do for the citizens of Liberty Lake in the future, for Craig Howard, it'll perpetuate his memory because Craig was a storyteller. So with that in mind, if anybody has an interest of donating to the fund, you can do that through Washington Trust or contact me. And I assure you, I will be Johnny on the spot to pick up your check. We have also formed a group of 6 individuals that will be looking at what the bench will be, what the verbiage will be, and we're open for suggestions. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us know about that. All right, any other city council reports? Councilmember Van Orman.
It is official. We are completed with the Brick That Keeps on Giving campaign for Liberty Lake Lions Club. I'd like to thank Joy Landscaping. They did a great job of putting those newly engraved paver inside the pads. There's 3 of them down there at the Arboretum. Go check them out. And that's another great spot to go ahead and put Craig Howard. Good friend. As we presented last year, we gave about 10,000 between $6,700 and 3 park benches, I mean 3 picnic tables. Well, we also just got through putting in all the pavers and so forth, so donated another 1723 to the city, but looking forward to having more and hoping that during our conversation, you'll see Joy Landscaping inside of your city council packet, that we also look at adding on to that with putting covers over those picnic benches and getting a restroom down there too.
Gotcha. All right. Any other council reports? Anybody? All right. I'll jump in real quick from the mayor's report. Meetings galore as usual. Lots of GSI. So we had the GSI economic forecast, Valley Chamber annual meeting. I was able to participate in that panel of elected officials for the Leadership Spokane class for this year. And very interestingly, that one of the main topic at the Valley Chamber annual meeting was a great presentation by Jim Frank on Growth Management Act and all things with that. Didn't get into the nitty gritty else. I think we probably would have lost a lot of people. But for those of us who really know what's going on, it was great. And then it was interesting because the GMA question came up as one of the questions for the panel at the Leadership Spokane meeting as well. So GMA is getting a lot of attention from businesses and citizens both around the county as we go through this process. We had interviews for 4 potential library board members. We had one opening because Bob Scadam moved away, and then one of our members is not upping her position. So we are able to offer positions to 2 of those interviewees. All 4 of them were amazing. We've struggled sometimes in the past with candidates for various boards and commissions, and we wish we could have offered these to everybody. So we're looking forward to putting the other 2 to work in other parts, whether it's Friends of the Library or something else. So you'll see those nominations come up for approval at the next meeting. Also had the SRTC board meeting. Coming up, the AWC Federal Legislative Priorities Committee. It's either tomorrow or Thursday. I just show up. I can't remember which day it is. The GSI Regional Advocacy Committee that I'm on as well. We have interviews for the finalists for our corporal positions for the PD. Another GSI meeting for the Joint Economic Development Committee, which I'm on, as well as the ADO meeting, Valley Chamber Board. And on this Saturday and Sunday, I sent an email to all of you. Jasmine Strong Foundation. It's a story of this young gal from I think it's Umatilla, Oregon, or somewhere in Northern Oregon. I met her dad, who's a detective, several years ago as they were doing a toy drive at the Walmart, on Broadway. And I introduced myself and, wanted to know what they were doing. Well, his daughter Jasmine had survived cancer, and one of her missions was to get toy donations for the children's hospitals around. So they are doing this in Oregon and Washington. They've done it here for 4 or 5 years in a row now. So if anybody's available to come help, with the toy drive at Walmart on Broadway here on Saturday and Sunday, it's a great cause. And then they send all the toys to be sorted and then resent back out. And on the 20th of December, I did this with them last year and the year before, we deliver all the toys to children, Shriners, Sacred Heart Children's, and to the Ronald McDonald House. And it's a really, really fun couple of days watching and see how generous people are. There's a retired nurse I met last year. She must have been in her early 90s. And, she parted with $100 bill for the cause. It's just amazing how people come out for the kids, especially this time of year. So if you have an hour or two to stop by either day, let me know. I'll probably be there both days. Leaving a little early Saturday though for Winter Glow. Other than that, I think that's all I've got for today. Next, we've got the city administrator report.
So Mayor, if I can suggest, maybe I've got a couple of items that may take some time. If we can rearrange and let Parks and Arts and Liberty Lake Sewer and Water go, and then I can clean up maybe.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, Parks and Arts, Laura. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. Pretty quick update for you. I have a few slides. No, you're fine. Okay, so end of year project work, just a couple of things we're trying to wrap up here before 2025. We approved a new pickleball storage wrap. You can see that it started peeling away, I believe, based on stickers that were placed on it and then removed. So approved to rewrap it with the same design that is currently on there. And then also going to squeeze in the Never Forget Garden enhancement. So the junction box is pretty tall. So we're going to consolidate those outlets and lower it about 18 inches off the ground. So that'll just clean up that area a little bit. Next slide, please. The other project that is scheduled for completion by the end of the year is the Trailhead Whimsical Map project. If you'll recall, a couple months ago, we had submitted the artist proposal for the agreement. That's since been executed with the caveat that we wanted to better highlight Trailhead since that art wall is directly adjacent to the pro shop. So this is the approved updated design that will be going on there. She was able to keep most of the elements of the whimsical map in the background. So the piece is intended to be enjoyed near and afar. So from coming into the building and walking down the hallway, you'll see the Trailhead map with their new logo. And then once you get closer, you can kind of do a deeper dive and see the whimsical map of Liberty Lake in the background.
Remind me how big that's going to be.
I'm sorry, what?
Remind me how big that is going to be.
I just sent this. I think it's about 8.5 by 10.5. So it's the majority of the wall, and there is an art light that is installed. So it'll be below that. And in talking with the artist, she's actually going to do it on panel board. So that way she can do all the painting in her studio, and then it'll minimize disruption to the pro shop for installation. It'll just be a cleaner install. Yeah. And then if for some reason we ever wanted to relocate it or needed to get into utilities located within the wall, it'd be easy and it wouldn't ruin the piece. So
great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And then the Liberty Lake Together, we did execute the artist agreement, so that's in progress. Still targeting a spring installation, so late first quarter, early second quarter for that project. Next slide, please. New stories are in Rocky Hill and Orchard Park. Jandy picked out some beautiful stories. Specifically, the lights that dance in the night is in Orchard Park to kind of tie in with Winter Glow. So be sure to check those out. Next slide, please. And then just to wrap up with our Bike Advisory Committee, they met for the final time this fall last month. and will resume in spring. Primary focus is developing a master plan in regards to bike safety. Next slide, please. And then on behalf of the commission, just a huge thank you to council for approving a funding mechanism. We're really, really excited to see the investment in arts in our community and having that funding source moving forward. And we have 4, I apologize, I missed getting Bob on here. I didn't know his application had gotten in on the agenda. So 4 term renewals. There's David Heimbaugh, myself, Noel Otterson-Laparco, and Bob Schneidmiller that are on your agenda for approval tonight. That's it. Any questions for Parks and Arts?
Anybody have any questions?
Thanks for all the work.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District. Did your lovely wife bring you dinner?
She did.
I saw her just before this.
Barbecue.
Oh, good.
Hi, Katayam Natarajan, Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District. I don't have a lot to report. Good news, no news is good news in my case, right? You turn the tap on, it comes out, you flush the toilet, it goes away. Everyone's happy. We do have the beach and leaf cleanup going on through December 2nd. So for everybody, if you want to get rid of your leaves or other yard waste, bring it out to the district spot, dump it. We do appreciate if you cut the bag open yourself. And please don't bring anything except for leaves and yard waste. No pumpkins. Pumpkins are not yard waste. Those are Halloween waste. And if you see anybody violating the rules, if you feel comfortable, mention to them that it's just for leaves and yard waste, or give us a call, because we've had a few people using this as a dumping ground, which is not good for anybody. So I want to keep this open all the time. So anyway, that's all I have. Any questions or comments for me?
Can I overload you with acorns and then you can grow a forest over there?
I think acorns are considered leaf and yard waste. Yeah, that'd be all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can make a
I'll
little,
bring them
remember when
all
your
your
kids
way.
make the pipes out of them? Can you make the little acorn pipes still? Yeah.
I'll bring them all your way. We can have a forest at the Sewer and Water District. Go ahead, Councilmember Van Orman.
What are you doing with all your bags?
I assume we're throwing them out. They're not recyclable, are they?
Instead of throwing them out, why don't you give them to the Lions Club and we'll go ahead and make some benches out of them.
That'd be a great idea. Yeah, okay. Who should we contact for that? You?
Go ahead and contact me. Yeah.
Okay, super, yeah. I will pass it on to Baiji and the guys and gals and we'll get that done. Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Good deal. Doesn't look like it.
Super.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Mark, now we're back to you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We look down the events and reminders on the city administrator report, starting out with the fall book sale at the library. That's going to happen on Friday and Saturday. I believe on Friday it starts at noon and on Saturday it starts at 9 a.m. Jandy, correct me if those are incorrect, but this is always an opportunity to go out, meet your neighbors, get some new reads and support the library, support the friends who support the library. On Saturday, later on in the evening, 5 p.m. at Orchard Park, the Winter Glow Spectacular Kickoff opening ceremony is happening. And since we briefed this at the last council meeting, a fireworks show has been added. And so if you're interested in checking all of that out, we look forward to seeing you out at Orchard Park on Saturday evening.
And that was donated.
Yes, and so this is turning into a really great show. So hopefully you can all make it out. Thanksgiving holiday is coming up, November 28th and 29th. That's next week. So Thursday and Friday, both City Hall and the library will be closed in observance. And then we talked a little bit about this earlier, the Liberty Lake Better Together tree lighting on December the 1st. This will be at Trailhead out toward the community sign. They will be putting a tree up and the lighting ceremony will happen at 5 p.m. on December the 1st. And I believe that's a Saturday. Is that right?
Sunday.
It's a Sunday. Sorry, Sunday. And then as Nada mentioned, Leaf and Beach over at the Liberty Lake Sewer and Water District goes on through December the 2nd. Any questions about any of those events? All right, so we are at the second meeting of the month and we have departmental reports that have been distributed. And so this is council's opportunity to ask any of the department heads questions about any of those reports.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have any questions, Mark, but I do want to say I just appreciate getting the reports every month because it's very helpful to be able to just see where things are. So thank you.
Absolutely. And now I will invite, and I believe Jandy is online, and she is going to give you an update about the Veterans Art Display at the library. Jandy?
Hi, Council. Good evening. I wanted to invite you to stop by the library this month. We have a veteran art display. The local Ridgeline High School art students did several watercolor drawings, paintings, sketches in honor of Veterans Day. Earlier this month, they had an assembly at the school, and then following the assembly, the art teacher brought all of their artwork to the library to display for the month of November. So I just wanted to invite you all to come take a look at it. They did a wonderful job. They're very talented, and you can really tell how much they honor and respect our veterans.
Thank you. Looking forward to that. How long will it be there, Jandy?
Throughout the month of November.
Great.
All right, and now Ben should be also online, and he's going to give you a quick update about the progress on the master facilities plan, also known as the building use plan. Ben.
Thanks, Mark. So good evening, everybody. I just want to give you a quick update, what we've been up to the last few weeks and then kind of where we're headed. So far, all the department heads have provided needs assessments. We've asked everybody to kind of look into the future 20 years to see what they would need. They provided that to the architects. We've also done site tours on all the facilities with BCRA, our architecture firm that's doing this for us, as well as I wanted to thank the council for their time this last couple of weeks as we discussed kind of the needs of the chamber. So thank you for that. So that's kind of what we got. That got us to this morning. We were provided 6 options by BCRA, various test fits of how different departments would kind of fit in the future with their future staffing. We looked at the police department facility, library, city hall, as well as the Legacy Church facility to kind of see how we could fit various options for each facility. So they provided that to us this morning. All the department heads were briefed. They've asked for us to review those for this week and provide them some comments. The next review will be sometime in mid-December. After that, they'll kind of go back, and that's really, we're trying to reduce options from 6. I really like to get it down to 3 before we present it to you for comment. So we're gonna do another round of those options, probably eliminate a few that just won't work. In mid-December, they'll work through the kind of over the holidays. We lose a little time over that, and then towards the kind of the 3rd week of January, they're going to give us our final review, and that review will also include cost for any projects that would require. Because I think that's one of the things council asked for is what's the overall cost if we needed to for all this work that we need to do to get to our build out. And so right now we've got a kind of a planned presentation to council in one of the February meetings. Any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. All right, and now we've talked a couple of times about the 2025 budget engagement, and this goes back, the kickoff of this goes back into late June, early July to coincide with the staff's formal kickoff of the development process. And so, Evan, if you can bring the presentation up, we can go through that. And this is not something that I expect you necessarily to read as it's going along the screen. There's a lot of information. I'm going to get you a report. But I wanted to kind of talk through some of the findings because they're all interesting. And the nice thing about the platform that we're using, our engagement platform that's provided by Zen City, is that whether we have 2,000 responses to any given tool that we're using, or in this case, you'll see 50 or so, we can crunch numbers and provide feedback in a fairly short order, right? And so we enjoy being able to see data and looking at it in several different ways. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of the tools that we've used through this season. Evan, if you can go to the next slide. So if you'll remember back to late July timeframe, we started a series of budget forums, which are essentially whiteboards on our website that allow people to come in and say whatever they want about the topic in front of them. And so we asked a series of questions and essentially provided 7 different opportunities on different topics for people to weigh in and tell us what their budget priorities may be, or what some things that we needed to consider within the operating or capital budgets on each of these topics were. And so remember, these are free form text. You can say whatever comes into your mind as it relates to that topic. And so presenting that information in this format would be a bit dense. And so I've given you some highlights in the box as an example. We labeled this, we branded it Talkback Tuesdays. And so every Tuesday for a couple of months, we had a different question. And so for the particular one that we have up there, which is one of the 7, it was traffic related issues. And so we were basically asking people, hey, tell us, what kind of traffic issues are out there that affect quality of life? And what are some things that you see out there that you may want to have addressed? And so in total, not just on this particular question, but on all 7 questions, we got 52 individual responses. Now, each of those responses could have contained 10, 12, sometimes 15 points that people were making. So that 52 goes up depending on the number of things that you chose to, put in your forum. But we had 52 individuals respond over these 7 questions. And you'll see specifically related to that traffic related talkback, some of and these are summary comments, right? You'll see things like traffic lights program for better traffic flow. We actually have that in our capital budget, right? So that's good news. We're going to be able to go back to that individual and say, look for this project to get started early in 2025. Other people said, or another person said, enforce traffic rules for golf carts. DC sitting in the back. I know he can relate to this. He probably wrote that himself, if we're being honest. More transit options for students who stay after school. That's one that we're going to have to partner with. But luckily, we have a board member for STA that we can work. And in fact, STA is working on some options that may fit into this and provide some greater flexibility for those who are needing to get around town. And then safety improvements for turning movements at busy intersections. And so we can all relate to that as we drive around town. And as congestion and peak periods hit us, it becomes more difficult to navigate those busy intersections. And so this is the kind of style of feedback that we were getting through the forums. What staff did with this information is we took those things generally, and some of the topics or some of the responses were very general. Some of them were very specific to the point of, I want you to put a stop sign facing south at this intersection, right? Or something like that. And so staff was able to take those pieces of feedback and incorporate them into budget development. And so we didn't necessarily point those out as we were going through the review of the budgets over the last several weeks, but to the extent that we were able to include those, they're in there. And so, like I said, we had 7 forum topics, 52 total responses, lots of data that came back in that. And I would point out also, we did this we used the same exact tool last year as we were developing the 2024 budget. We did not have a new topic per week, but we had the forum available, and we had much more feedback this year than we had last year. And so we hope that as the years progress, we get just steadily more feedback as people become more aware of this. And we tell them, hey, we got this feedback through the forum. Look, we incorporated it into the budget and now we're implementing it. And so hopefully that encourages more response as well. Evan, if we can go to the next slide. The more recent tool, and this started just a couple of weeks ago. We're calling this More, Less, or Just Right, attempt to kind of gamify the priority-based budget component to get, number one, people more familiar with priority-based budgeting, and then number two, to actually get some feedback as to what these programs are budgeted at, and for people to be able to tell us, do you want to invest what's being proposed, less or more? And so we didn't put all 62 or whatever number of programs we have out there. We chose 18 of ones that are more recognizable, that don't take a lot of explanation. And of those 18 programs, we asked these 3 questions and you got to choose one of those options. And then at the end, you actually got to put some numbers in if you wanted to change what that investment may be. And so we got 51 responses to date on that. And the total of those 18 programs that we put out there constituted about $9.5 million of our budget. And so just a quick summary, and then we'll look at some details. And again, don't try to memorize any of this. I'm going to send you a report. But the majority of people chose the proposed investment option in 14 of the 18 programs. If you're looking at it from a floor standpoint, right? So a proposed or more, meaning it was at least what's proposed, but also more. 11 of 18 were in that category, and then proposed or less, meaning the amount proposed or less than that amount, 7 of the 18 times. And when you added up the averages of the numbers that people put in for each of those investments, that $9.5 million was reduced by about $214,000.
That's not bad.
Right. So it was pretty spot on. Yes, sir.
Mark, quick question. So on the ones that answered proposed or more, did we give them, or did we ask them for, if they were going to say more, how they would fund that?
Not specifically how they would fund it. And this, there's almost infinite possibilities of things we can do with this in future years. And that's certainly one of those things. This year, we did not ask that question. We did offer them the opportunity to say, if you're going to fund this one more, you have to reduce something else because you had a maximum amount. You couldn't go over that. So
thank you.
Next slide, please, Evan. And these are just a couple of slides showing the 18 programs. And again, we're not going to go over each one of these, but you can kind of see, and I put the page number that this corresponds to your budget binder so you can follow up on these when you get this. But you can see how each of these kind of went down. And it's interesting when you look at some of these, as you would expect, things that fall in like crime prevention or public safety were very highly proposed or more percentage-wise. And as you go through the different ones, you can just see how people preferred either less, more, or something else. And then the second 9 here on the second page, I wanted to point out that snow removal of the 18 programs was the only one where no one said fund it less. 100% of the people said either at that amount or more. And so others came close, but that was the only one that achieved that 100%. So as you can see, there's some flexibility we have. Again, this was our native voyage on using this particular tool to get feedback on the budget. The one thing that we need to do next year is start this much earlier in the year so that we can bring this information to you before you even see the budget. And that's one of the things that we intend to do going forward. And so that's the report. You will get this in hard copy via email, and we'll put this out on our website so people can see the results of the survey. We're going to keep it open at least another week just to see if we can get some more feedback. But as it stands, I'm pleased with the number of responses we've gotten so far. So any questions that I can help answer?
Go ahead, Linda.
So this is kind of modeled after the priority-based budgeting, right?
So we modeled in the sense that we asked the questions in the context of the programs. Yes. We could have asked questions in any way that we wanted to, but one of our goals with this was to get people more familiar with priority-based budgets and particularly the programs that they're going to be focused on as the units of, call them the units of investment, right? The units of expense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, great information.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have workshop discussion. Councilmember Kennedy had asked to put on the agenda Library Community Center. We're calling a retrospective. back to a 2007 proposal. So I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. I was very much looking forward to be able to get into the subject tonight. Is that I have a few things we'll be able to put on the screen here in a little bit, Evan, when I ask you to do so. But what's interesting is that this city, since day one, the city, and Councilman Van Orman can contest to this, is that when it was formed, one thing was talked about almost immediately was a community center and also a library. And over the years, I believe the city has worked diligently to try to achieve that. And we've been close so many times. And then the golden ring was snatched from us. But I think right now we're close, so close again. And I hope what I can share with tonight is that how do we get where we are? And can we fast track this so that this can doesn't get kicked down the road again? I use that term a lot because my concern is this can gets kicked down the road so many times. After a while, we don't know it's a can anymore because we can't recognize it on it. So when it first started in 2006, Evan, could you put the one up? The phases? No, the one before that, the one with the phases. Phase 1, 2, and 3.
It's going to be labeled either 1 or 2, Evan. Look at, there's 2 files in there.
The suspense builds. What is it? What is it? Very good. Thank you for bringing that up. If you look at this and take a moment to study this, you will recognize that the town square is on the lower part of that. And if you look at the date to the following right, it's 2006. So in about 2004, 2005, there was many committees were formed. We had a lot of citizen input to see how can we move forward with the land that we purchased over there, the 6.2 acres. And if you think about it over the years, that comes up all the time. Just recently, a council member said, well, what are we going to do with that land over there? And we kind of look at each other like, well, what are we going to do with that? Well, in reality, this city has been working for 21 years to do something with that. Where I got this from was the file that I had from 2005 when I was on the committee. And I have less hair and less weight just waiting for, is this going to get done over a period of time? If you will look at this, a lot of time and effort was put into phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 was decided if we could get that done, then the logical thing is to move into phase 2. Well, phase 1 is done. We utilize that and we utilize it very, very well. Then the goal was, well, how do we move into phase 2 to try to get things accomplished? And where it went from with 2006, that in 2008, correct me if I'm wrong along the way, that was put in to the voters to raise the funds to build phase 2 and that building that was there. And I won't go into all the details of the square footage, but it was quite large. And I think it was about at the time about $8 million to do that. What happened is that it had to go to we decided it had to go to the public. And the challenge was we didn't have the money to do that. So to do so, we had to raise the taxes. And lo and behold, it didn't pass. So what the council was able to do was after that, was buy the building where the police department is now and the library, and we're able to move ahead. We didn't have the square footage to be able to have a community center. Then the idea was that we could get a community center by doing something with Trailhead. Unfortunately, moving ahead there, we don't have the space over there for a community center. So what's been pushed back and talked about since day one is that what makes sense is to have a community center in conjunction with the library. In 2018, I think it was, we spent $36,000 in 2019, $36,000 to have a library analysis done. The one thing it showed was this, that our library could use more square footage. And it was talked about anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 square feet would be ideal for something like that. What was pointed out in that survey is that the community center tied to the library is something that brings our citizens together. So we thought that would be the movement there. Unfortunately, it failed because we weren't able to raise the money. So then go forward to about 2016, 2017, it came up again. And what we could do is that we could develop on that property. And initially, the building was going to be there, it was quite large, about 27,000 square feet. It was two-tiered, and there was going to be some pools to it, but it was large, and the budget was about $14 million for that. It was given to the citizens. The citizens said no. We didn't get enough votes to move ahead on that. But keep in mind, even though the citizens said no, we're going to move ahead, they didn't say we don't want a library or community center. Keep that in mind as we move through this. So then we were so committed with the idea that for years and years, we've been working towards a combination of community center and library. Let's bring it back again. So we brought it back again, I think 2017, 2008, 16, 17. And we budgeted down to $9 million because we cut a lot of things out. The citizens said no again because of raising taxes and that type of stuff. Whatever the reason is, they said no. So the point is, what I see is 3 times we've been so close. But what kept us from moving ahead is that citizens looked at this and said, we want it, but we're not prepared to spend additional taxes to do so. Well, that brings us to where we are today. Where we are today, we still have the same goal and desire to be able to have a larger library for community center. Because one thing the survey analysis did show is this, we can get by quite well with the library we have now. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's what the analysis said. But what it showed in the analysis, if we could put a community center in addition to that library, what happens, we tie the city together, thereby enhancing the library and enhancing community center. Because what the survey showed, because of cell phones right here, usage for information in libraries has slipped a little bit. Doesn't mean they're not going to be around. But what they also showed in analysis, that it might have slipped a little bit for technology and stuff, but because of community centers and stuff, it brings it back up. Why? Because we have a space to do events, and that's what I think all of us are working for on it. Where does that bring us to today? Well, today, we have one thing that we didn't have before. The one that's dry mouth. We still don't have the same goal and desire. I don't think anybody can argue against that we don't want to have a library. I don't think anybody can argue against we don't want to have a community center. The discussion is, how are we going to do that? Well, if it's been financial difficulty in the past, where are we today? Today, we have a building that we spent $2.1 million on. And since then, we've discovered that it's going to take a lot more money than we anticipated to bring that up to code. But also what we've been able to identify is that we can pull 5.8 for discussion tonight, allow me to raise it to 6 million. We can pull $6 million cash and we could get a 15,400 square foot building there. Well, at the same time, what you have to look at, what was our original goal? The original goal of the city was to buy that 6.2 acres and do what? Put phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 2 is the library and community center. Because the question comes down, what are we going to do with that land? We already own it. We actually are in an opportunity that we have more than one option. And that may put some people in a tailspin, but realize prior to this, we didn't have any other options. But there's actually 3 options. Because the analysis, one thing it showed at the time, that they put a lot of time and effort into this. And the committees we had, I think there was 25 to 30 people that were there. I think, I'm trying to think of the audience, we had some individuals who were there. Brad, were you there? That was after that. Okay. And what was interesting, all the people who were on that committee all live within the city. So they were vested in being able to do something like this on it. So what was looked at was this: if we couldn't do something because of the budget at the town square, what could be done in the existing library? And what was looked at is the recommendation from the people that did the analysis. We could build technically, possibly 4,000 to 5,000 square feet on that existing building. Now, granted, we never got into the point of finding out if there's electrical problems or how we'd be able to do that. But it was going to be about 5,000 square feet. But what was looked at, once again, it was more money that we'd have to go back to the citizens. Now we're in a position where we don't have to do that. What could be done in that space, and these are numbers just to think about. Because by looking at these options, in my opinion, can get us to the point where this council and the committee members and the citizens that work so hard to get this done, we can move forward on it. Spokane Valley just built a library there. It's 24,000 square feet, beautiful building, outstanding. That none of that money went towards the land. They own that, but it was $15 million budget. $15 million budget, 24,000 square feet comes up to be $625 a square foot. If we looked at an option, what was talked about in the past of adding on to the existing library, if it was 5,000 square feet at 625, that's today's numbers. That's $3.1 million. We have $6 million in cash, an equity of 2.1 or more in land. Just for the heck of it. Not saying that's just discussion purposes. If 5,000 square feet could be added to the existing library, that's a $3.1 million on today's money. Now let's assume we have to add some additional money for parking and things of that sort there. Let's assume that we miss it by $1 million. But let's really be crazy. Let's say we miss it by $2 million. So now what we'd have is a building of $5 million, and we still would have over $3 million left in money that could be applied if necessary to paying off Trailhead over a period of 2 years. And in doing so, even after a $126,000 pre-penalty payment, we would save over $2 million in interest. So let me go one step further, and that draws me to what you're looking at on the screen. If we were to take the $8 million, and that would be liquidating the building, keep that in mind, because we would get our equity back. We'd probably get more based on what the building's supposedly worth now. We're also looking at the possibility, I'm very confident we're going to get that $1 million from the state. I really am. And I'm really more than confident we can raise a lot of money through donations. And let's say we've been estimated 1.5 million. If we took $8 million at $625 a square foot, we could build a facility over at Town Square of 12,200 square feet. Now let's take the 1.5 that we get from this million from the state and what we also bring in from donations. Now we're up to 9.5. We already own the land. Well, how much of a building could be built there? I think it's 15,800 square feet. A lot more than we're looking at now. I've been talking to citizens about this, the options that we have. And one thing that's come up is the building that we have, square footage wise, is fantastic. You know, we can share parking lots, things that's right there. But to look at, we're going to have to put a lot of money into bringing that up to code. Once it's up to code, as a citizen told me today, we still have an old building. Excuse me. If we would look at option, I'm going to call it, I don't want to go 1, 2, and 3. Just the option of doing something at Town Square. In essence, we're looking at $9.5 million. We could build what we want and we desire. If we don't have to keep reaching with the golden ring, we have it. Why? Because we have the money. We could build on Town Square the dream, goal, and desire that the city set years ago, because it's the first time it's within reach. And what it would do is secure the future of the library, secures the future of community center, makes the citizens happy that it's not the location what everybody wants. What we want is to have the library with the community center. So these are just kind of rough numbers being thrown out that is there. What I'd like to do, if you can, Evan, is bring up the other drawings we have. Yeah, the colorful
Yeah.
ones. What he's going to be bringing up now, this is what was presented to the citizens. That what would look like if we went into phase 2 at Town Square. And keep in mind, if I remember the figures correctly, in 2006, that was an $8 million project.
9.8.
Pardon?
9.8.
9.8, thank you, Mayor. So 9.8, let's round it to 10,000 for round figures on it. What this concept was drawn out to give an idea what the building could look like on the right-hand side. Now, the square footage for that facility was quite large. It was a total of 27,200 square feet. The library would take up 10,200 square feet. The community center was 8,900 square feet. It was a huge facility. The common area was 4,600 square feet, and common area, I mentioned that was 4,600, 27,200 square feet. If that is reduced down to where we still have the library having sufficient square footage and add the community center, we can achieve what we've been working for 23 years. That's what I want people to think about tonight. Is it that we don't want a library? That's not the question. Is it we don't want a community center? That's not the question. Question has always been, how do we do that? Now, we can go ahead and move ahead with the building that we have, put money into it, be upside down financially when it comes to having to put so much money into it to bring it up to code. But we can live with that. And in 10 years down the road, people aren't even going to think about it. But we do have that ability to move forward. Let's don't keep kicking this can down the road. But what I want to emphasize, we have the ability to achieve what has been a desire since day one. I can't imagine anybody within the city would say no to that. With that in mind, that's all I've got. I'd love to hear from the council members what they think of this. And at the same time, what I would like to do is make a request, so I don't forget it, that we bring this back up on our December 3rd meeting for discussion.
So real quick, before we go to the council, I would like to remind the council that a vote was already taken at a previous meeting to put the discussion about the library financing and what is coming next off until the master facilities plan is done in February or March. That this was going to be coming back for discussion then.
Can I address that?
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I was one who was supportive of that. But you know, things change. None of this is cast in concrete. We can change. Why? Because we have the power to do that. Because then when we were talking about that, this hadn't been discovered. This never came available until yesterday. This came out of the archives yesterday. Okay? This came out of my personal from 18 years ago. That had never been, this had never been presented to any of the committee members since 2006. This had never been seen by anybody in the library volunteers. No one has seen this prior to.
Well, where did it come from? How did?
Hold on, just can you let him finish and we'll.
Yeah,
get a question.
Good question. That's all I have on that. So question.
So real quick, I just, the council gave the staff and our partners direction. They are moving forward in that direction. Most of you participated in the discussion with regards to the council chambers. We are far down the road, and I would my request would be that the council honor their previous vote and not bring this back up for discussion until that work is finished. Now I'll go to Councilmember Ball for her question.
Yeah, I was just curious, then if no one had seen those, where'd you get them?
Well, unfortunately, they get put in files and that type of stuff. No, believe me, no one's hiding anything.
Mhm. Okay. Oh, who designed it?
Bernardo Wills.
I just quickly observed that these materials were discussed and used in countless community meetings at the time that the bond was presented. I think the entire city was exposed to all these renderings in its discussion.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Van Orman.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Extensive conversations. Unfortunately, the first time that it went to vote was January of 2008, when the economy went down into a recession. And we had two extremely huge snowfalls that helped that along. And then we jumped forward to 2017, I believe, when we had one more vote. But realized that we already had Plan B option where we had the library. And most people didn't want to vote for another library because, well, one was in existence and it was only less than 10 years old. We have an opportunity to do something too, I should say, Councilmember Dunn, to house your father-daughter dance in a place that's actually in Liberty Lake. That's one thing we don't have, is a large enough facility. And Jandy is doing an amazing job of doing library and community center. It'd be nice to have space to be able to do that.
Anybody else? Mayor Pro Tem. And then I've got Councilmember Kurtz after. Sorry, I just saw you.
She can go first.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Kurtz.
I think that I like the idea that the renderings have been brought forward so people can look at those, but I think that we are in the middle of the master facilities plan. And I hope that these renderings and all this information is given to them for their consideration for that master facilities plan. So with that in mind, I think going through that process, since that's where we wanted to go, giving them this information for them to consider with what they bring back to us. But I think we're getting into a little bit of a discussion about ballpark numbers. And I think at least I've learned that we need to rely on the experts for those numbers. So we could say it's 9 point whatever million tonight. But I don't know what the final number is going to be. And I would like to, I guess, wait until we go through the whole exercise, get the master facilities plan, get all of those things lined up and have a really in-depth discussion with some handouts so that we can review those numbers, because it's hard to conceptualize that when it's not on paper in front of me, at least for my learning style. So I don't know that I want to talk about this in December as much as I want to talk about a library and a community center and all those things. I think we need to wait for the process to unfold at this point.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
So a couple of things I want to note here. First, I really wish we would have had a conversation like this at the beginning of the process, where we could have looked at 3 or 4 or 5 different options and decided which option we wanted to go with. Instead, what happened was we were essentially given one option. The council said it was going to wait, as the mayor points out, until the master plan was brought back. And yet we're still moving forward in the budget with the budget numbers based on that one option. That, I think that's kind of a backwards way of doing this. There are 3 different moving parts to this. One is, where do we put the new library? The second is, what do we do with Town Square? And then the third is, how does this impact the other buildings in the city? Those 3 parts. I think it's fine to have conversations about all 3 of those. And I don't think that the time that we do those is necessary. I don't think there's any right answer in terms of which discussion we have first. But the most important number to me in all of this discussion is the number 4, and that is, what option can we bring forward that's going to get 4 votes on this council? And I may be wrong, but I don't see the building, the new building that we purchased a couple of years ago, having 4 votes to move forward. At least not at this point. Now that could change when the master plan is brought back in February /March. So I don't think it hurts us to continue to have discussions about other plans that we could proceed with as well. Because as Councilmember Kennedy points out, the priority here is, okay, how do we build the library? Where do we put it? What's the best option? And I would hope that there would be 3 or 4 different options that we could choose from by the time we get to the master facilities plan coming up at the beginning of the year. So I don't have a problem with continuing to talk about it in subsequent meetings. But I do think it's important to point out that I'm not sure that we have the votes right now to move forward with the building that's that we purchased a couple of years ago. So thank you.
Anybody else? I think, I don't know if Councilmember Kurtz, if your hand is back up or, okay.
Yes. I just wanted to respond to what Mayor Pro Tem was saying there, because I think he is correct that I don't think we have the votes for any of the options that are out there right now without more information. And my only hesitation to continue to talk about this in between is that we don't actually have facts and data to back up what we want. And I go through the motto of only handle it once. And if we keep picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down, I think that's where we lose some of the finer details of things. And so I think if we want to have some sort of a meeting to talk about things in between, I would suggest that we do a special meeting and we talk about the library versus kind of jumbling it in with, we've got some other stuff tonight too, that's going to make this meeting go longer. And I think all of those things are important. But if we really want to talk about the library, let's focus on the library. Let's do a special meeting, even if it's an hour or two, where we need to talk about things. But I think what I have trouble with is us putting this in an agenda that has quite a few things on it tonight, and then putting it in another agenda that has quite a few things in it. And then we don't have the opportunity to really discuss things in depth the way that I think that personally for me, I wish we would. So that's my only hesitation with just adding it to another agenda, is that we won't have the robust discussion that I think that we do need to have.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll go to Councilmember Dunn and then we'll go to Mark.
Just that I appreciated Ben's effort, update on our master plan objective and the administrator's report. And yeah, I look forward to the data that will be revealed in that discussion. I second the observations of Annie that I believe that the numbers will call it, as much as I wish to speculate or think that I have the authority or knowledge. No, I really have, we pay people to do that, and that's where it'll be right. And so I look forward to reviewing that.
Right. All right. And I know Jandy wants to jump in. You want to go first, Mark? You want me to go to Jandy?
Go to Jandy.
Okay. Go ahead, Jandy. And one of the questions I was going to ask you is that $937,000 grant is specifically for the building we own, correct?
Yes, so that's the one thing I wanted to clarify. I think this is a great discussion with the council, and ultimately it will be the council's decision. If we decide to move the new location of the library to Town Square or somewhere else, we will have to reapply for the grant funding because it's specific to this project and this building. And the other piece of it is that it is a matching grant. Obviously, a library is going to cost more than $1 million, but we will have to put forward money in order to receive money, if that makes sense. The other thing I just wanted to clarify is the reason we brought back a single option this last time with BCRA is because the council did buy this building with the intent to make it a new library. So that is why I didn't bring forward an option for Town Square or the current library, because that's the direction I had received. So just wanted to clarify that really quick too.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to level set based on a comment that Councilmember Kurtz made earlier. The master facility plan scope does not include evaluation of any potential site. The scope that we gave them was to review existing city facilities for a build out plan to include growth through 20 years. If we want them to assess a potential future site, we're going to have to issue a change order with added scope. Doesn't mean we can't do that, but that probably also extends the timeline that we previously talked about of being early to mid-February on results.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Two questions then, Mark. How long does it extend the timeline? And what is the extra cost if we were to do that?
I can get answers to both of those questions, but I need to talk to Turner, Townsend, and Harry first.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy,
I'd like to say something at the end. I want everybody to have an opportunity to speak.
I'll chime in.
go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I think this information that was brought forward is very interesting. I think it's always better to have more options, for sure. I also think that we have higher priorities in the city than some of these particular options that have been brought forward, and I've been very vocal about that in the past. We do have an obligation to pay off Trailhead as quickly as possible. We mentioned that we were planning to pay that off early, but as of yet, we haven't put any money away to do that. We've just been making the minimum payments, basically. So I think this is all interesting, but in my opinion, paying off that building and focusing on law enforcement, we just saw some slides earlier that citizens are concerned about making sure that we have a safe city and roads. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else before we go back to Councilmember Kennedy? Go ahead.
I'm extremely pleased with the conversation tonight. I absolutely am. And why is because we talked about how we're going to move forward, how we got here and how we're going to move forward. I agree with Councilman Dunn and also Councilman Kurtz that we can look at this more. The key is that we look at it, because what I've heard from both council members, and you've also heard from me in the past, is that I wasn't sure about the numbers on the existing building. If you think back on it, those numbers changed over a period of 90 days substantially. So the numbers that I quoted tonight is based on hard numbers that the library was built. Tonight is not the time to get into that. I just want to say is that the goal that I had to bring this forward, as far as I'm concerned, is very successful. We heard from the council, we heard how we can move forward if we're going to move forward. Now, what I also heard was a lot of discussion, why not? I would like us also to focus on why. So this is great. I'm very pleased with the outcome of this.
Great. Great. Mayor Pro Tem.
One more quick thing, Mark. Could you have that information to us in terms of the cost for the change order and how long it would take to get this added to it at the next meeting?
At the next council meeting?
Yeah, or how long, I guess my question is, how long would it take you to get that?
I'm
info?
sure we can have it by the next council meeting, probably far shorter than that. You know, part of the discussion is going to be, does this fit into a master facility
Right.
planning process, or is this a separate analysis? And, you know, obviously they dovetail at some point, but we'll have that discussion and get you those answers back as soon as we can, but certainly before the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And real quick, before we finish, I keyed in on something you said, Councilmember Kennedy. You said something about numbers changing significantly within 90 days. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from.
I'm sorry, what?
You just mentioned that the numbers that were given changed significantly within 90 days. I'm just
90
curious
days
where
or
that's
thereabouts,
coming.
whatever it is. That,
It makes a big difference.
well, yeah, there's a big difference, but the big difference is also that if you want to go into this, fine. It was put across that we're going to spend $2.1 million for that building, of which if I had been on the council, I would have said absolutely yes. But it also was given to the council, and you can go back and check the records, that we were looking at about $330,000 to bring it up. Then it was $1 million, and then it was more, and then it was more, then it was more. The concern with that is to try to get council members to make a decision, because the numbers kept changing. And the more we change numbers, the less confident we have on moving forward.
But we'll make sure next time we discuss this, we will bring back those dates and those numbers, because they did not change that often or that quickly. And I have a problem with false information getting put out there. I have Councilmember Kurtz and then back to Councilmember Spencer.
I guess I just wanted to ask maybe Mark and then the rest of the council. So when and I don't know where this fits in, but when we had the original ask to do Turner, Townsend, and Heery for the library project, the add-on to have them look at some of the other pieces was taken out of the work order that we approved for that. So if we're looking at then doing some sort of something here, do we need to be discussing an RFP? Because that was an issue for a number of people on the council when we originally talked about that. And I don't want to get far down the road and then we did it wrong. We have to start over again. So do we need to be looking at an RFP? Do we need to be doing something different? Can this just be done through a work order? What are people going to be comfortable with, and what are people willing to support when it comes before them next time?
To answer the first part of that question, we don't need to go through an RFP process because we already have a task order contract or a master services contract with Turner Townsend Erie. It's through that contract that we're engaged with BCRA to do the work of the master facility planning. And so whether this piece of it is, I mean, it would just become a secondary task order. The question is, what is the amount of effort and what is the cost? And I would hesitate to even estimate at this point without having gone back and talked to them because they've not seen any of this information. Once we have that, those estimates, we can bring them back, but we don't need to go out through a separate procurement vehicle. We already have the structure in place to get this done.
Thank you.
Right, we had Councilmember Spencer and then back to Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think the original numbers we were presented at the 5.7 or 5.8, we were told that about 2 million of that was going to bring the building up to code. And then the very next meeting, we were told it was over 3 million, but the total price didn't change. So
We'll go back and
Yeah.
verify that. And of course, obviously, things change a lot over 2 years with construction costs. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Real quick question, and I don't know who might have the answer to this. Councilmember Kennedy brought up the possibility of the add-on to the building, the current building. But I've heard mixed things about whether that's even possible with some of the lines behind the current building or how that all works. So is there someone either internally or through Turner Townsend who can give us a clear answer to that?
So there's a couple of answers to that. We internally can answer questions about the development code, i.e. setbacks and all of those kinds of things. If we're talking about within the allowable code provisions, what are possible configurations, we would have to bring in BCRA to do that for us.
But I have heard that it's not even possible because of some sort of lines behind it, like buried below behind that building.
Yeah, we would need to do a utility check and all of the, I mean, the other thing to consider is the parking lot. You would be severing the parking lot circulation. And so there's all kinds of things that we would have to look at, but we can do an internal check first. And if we run into two not possibles, right, there's no need to engage BCRA. So we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
I think we did, Councilmember Van Orman.
My understanding when we went ahead and purchased the building, Northwestern Technologies, with Tier Point being right beside it and Bernard Danes talking about the lines going underneath, kind of impossible to go ahead and build over that.
Yeah, there's dark fiber running from the portal building over to the gray building.
Yeah, it really just depends on what easements are there and what of them can be, we'll just have to look. We have to do some research.
Okay.
Okay. All right, if there's no other comments, move on to consent agenda.
All right, Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve general business consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of approving consent agenda items A, B, C, and D, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0.
All right, Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve general business item 11A, the reappointment, and I'm going to apologize, Noel, because I don't know exactly how to pronounce your last name. Oderson Laparco?
Laparco.
Laparco.
Yep.
To the Parks and Arts Commission.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Noel's been a valuable member of the Parks and Arts Commission. Laura can attest to that. So if you guys don't have any other questions, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0.
Make a motion to approve general business item 11B, the reappointment of Laura Frank to the Parks and Arts Commission. That one's a little bit easier.
Seconded.
We have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember Van Wormen. You want to tell us how great you are, Laura? And we already know.
We already know.
Okay, if there's no questions or comments, all those in favor of reappointing Laura Frank to the Parks and Arts Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
Motion to approve general business item 11C, the reappointment of David Heimbob to the Parks and Arts Commission.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a second from Councilmember Van Orman. Any questions? All in favor of reappointing David Heimbob to Parks and Arts, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0.
And number 11D, I'll make a motion to reappoint Bob Schneidbiller to the Parks and Arts Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilmember Dunn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0.
Do you, question, do we want to do a 10E before we do the?
If that's
restaurant
okay
lease?
with the council?
Just
I'm
real
seeing
quick?
Nods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve general business item 10E. The replacement of 4 HVAC units on the roof of the library.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Dunn. Obviously questions, Councilmember
Yeah,
Kennedy.
it was not only a question, but it's really a statement, so the citizens wouldn't be confused that there might, in case they don't go into a panic, is that, oh, well, hold it, now they're going out, we were forced to exchange it. If I remember correctly, Mayor, you probably remember this, or Dan Dunn remembers, I think we had 6 units up there, and we replaced 2 of them here several years ago.
Gosh,
And
I
at the
can't
time, it
remember.
was discussed that the other 4 needed to be replaced. So moving ahead on this, it should not be looked at as that, how did this all come about? We had discussed this and even talked about the dollar amount some time ago.
Yeah, and I think Ben's still on. Ben, would you like to address? I'm sure this is part of the asset management plan we've been looking at for a while.
This was an issue that I was kind of brought up to speed as soon as I came on board. They had, and Jandy can probably speak better to the current comfort levels in the library in the winter and the summer. But yeah, these are the 4 that didn't get replaced previously before I got here, and this would replace those 4. And it is currently on the CFP for next year, but we saw that we did have available funds in the capital fund, so that we were expediting it because it is getting a little chilly in there.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one quick follow-up, Ben. Will these still, I hope the answer is yes to this. These will be able to be used no matter what we do with the building in the future? There's no.
I believe so. I mean, we've looked at some different COAs during the facility master plan that we'll obviously share with you shortly. And yeah, I believe so. We may need some additional ductwork if we subdivide the building a little differently, but I think they will last longer than the library. Not necessarily if the library stays there, obviously not, but yeah, they can be used in the future.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, not hearing any. All those in favor of approving, excuse me, the proposal from Apollo Mechanical for HVAC unit replacements in the total $57,736.21, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? My motion passes 7-0. Now we are up to the restaurant lease at Trailhead. We have a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to award the restaurant lease to, I'm gonna butcher the name, Civitalis? I'm sorry. I wasn't even close. Chevalitas. That's my motion. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second by Councilmember Spencer? All right, we'll open up for discussion. I will point out what, kind of reiterating a little bit of what Kelsey had pointed out before. You guys all got copies of emails from the public. In addition to the 13, I think it was, emails that we got, 15 total. Oh, wow, I lost a little bit of track. So I was watching those emails, and I was also watching some of the Unofficial, of course, we all know that, responses on the various community pages on Facebook. And based on those numbers, it was coming in about 96% of our community who has taken the time to voice their opinion would prefer to have Saranac there. Just obviously, the Facebook stuff is not scientific. We did get plenty of emails from the community, and I think that the council really needs to take that into consideration. So next up, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, first of all, I want to just thank the groups and the restaurants that submitted proposals to us. Is there anyone from Saranac here tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And to the restaurant that is also here that I can't pronounce. Chevalitas, thank you. I do want to say that I'm really disappointed with how this process played out, and it's been kind of chaotic, and the three having this discussed 3 different times and forcing the restaurants to come back, and I don't like the way this all played out, and I think this is showing why governments should not be in the business of owning restaurants. Nevertheless, we've had these restaurants come back. They've presented their plans to us. There's been one restaurant who's presented the compelling plan, who had diagrams, who had financials, had designs, had the background. And there's one restaurant that over the 20-year period is going to return more than double the amount of revenue to the city. In fact, $680,000 more, according to the numbers that we have that are in the packet here. That's just to give everyone an idea. That's enough to fund several more police officers in the city. Extra art in the city. It's almost the total amount of our streets fund for the entire year. So as everyone knows, I was opposed to going into this business. And part of the reason for that is because I don't think anybody up on this dais is qualified to make a decision as to who has the best food or who is the best restaurant or who is going to be best for folks who want to eat there. All we have to go on is the business plan that's been presented and what it will do in terms of finances to the city. And so I hope we look at what is the best deal for taxpayers. And the best deal for taxpayers by far and away over the 20-year period is Chavalitas. That's not to say Saranac won't potentially bring in revenue as well, but the revenue is just not nearly as high. And the amount that we as a city would have to invest in the building would also not be paid back. So I think for those reasons, I'm really hoping the council makes a great decision tonight. I'm probably going to be killed at home for making this, because I also live in a household of folks who really like Saranac, and both restaurants are really great, but I have to look at it from the perspective of what's the best deal for taxpayers. So thank you.
Okay, we had Councilmember Kurtz next, and then Councilmember Ball.
So I think at the last meeting, we talked about having some more potential second presentation from Saranac, because they didn't get to do 2 like the other restaurants did. But then also the question that I had asked at the last meeting was how solid the numbers were. And I think that there was still a little bit of wavering on that. And so I feel like, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, if we're looking at numbers, one of them is clearly a better deal for taxpayers. But I also want to balance that with what if the numbers are not accurate? And so that was one of the questions that I had at the last meeting, because I think that when we're trying to decide between, again, being in the restaurant business and what people are going to go visit and go patronize, if people don't go, the business isn't going to succeed either. So I really wanted to see if the numbers are solid, and then if Saranac was going to present anything else tonight.
So at this stage of the project, and I'll say based on the feedback that we got from the last council meeting, we've requested from all three parties, and you know that the third one has since withdrawn. But we asked from all three parties for more firm financial information. We did not receive more firm financial information from any party. So we have nothing to share with you. These numbers at this stage of the process are as firm as they are going to get.
Can I ask a follow-up on that real quick?
Okay, Councilmember Kurtz, do you have anything to follow that up before I move on?
I mean, I think that, again, trying to figure out what people are going to be interested or not. I think that, I mean, I don't know how well everybody is paying attention to this in the city, but it does seem like there is more interest for Saranac. And when I'm thinking about being business conscious, I think we have a couple of restaurants that have very similar business models that maybe being competed with by bringing somebody new in. And I don't feel like Saranac has that edge to it in the community. And maybe other people have a different opinion of that, but that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
And is a follow-up?
Yeah, it's just a real quick follow-up. Mark, did we also ask Saranac for, I remember this at the last meeting, for the follow-up designs or concepts or anything like that that we got from the other restaurants? I mean, we had
I'm gonna
pretty
ask.
clear presentations from both the sushi restaurant and Chavalitas, and they've both taken our feedback and changed up their designs, but I haven't seen anything from
I'm
Saranac.
gonna ask Doug Bird to address that if he can. Doug?
Here. Brandon's here.
Okay, could you restate your question?
My question is, did we or have we received any follow-up from Saranac on what the concept would look like, what the plans, the diagrams, anything extra? I mean, that we haven't been privy to before.
I have not seen that, but they are here tonight
Come on up.
to present. If you'd like to see them.
Well, this is where it kind of gets sticky for me, because then we're doing a third round of
No,
presentations.
this is their second shot.
Okay.
So I have not seen them. I'm your broker, but they said that they would present them here tonight. And so we have a representative from them, from the Saranac here to present.
Come on up.
Thank you, council members. My name is Eric Whitney. I'm architect with 88 Architecture, and I'm representing Saranac tonight.
Can you say who you are again?
Eric Whitney with 88 Architecture. I'm the architect that Saranac has hired.
So you're not actually with Saranac, you're the architect?
I'm representing Saranac tonight.
Okay.
So I've made copies of the proposed design for the 2 stories, upper and lower level. That basically does represent a full restaurant design that Finley Construction has also bid, and is where the number in the agenda today comes from. So Finley has looked this over with the subs, and ultimately that's where the number comes from. When we've talked about different city funds use and requests, we know that that's part of the negotiation process that comes up in future endeavors. Talking about definition of vanilla shell, and that kind of starts to open up the whole can of worms. But I'm gonna stay quiet on some of those. But I think that's the negotiation part for both parties. I mean, either restaurant is gonna have a benefit to the community, and ultimately this is what Saranac is presenting in terms of their layout for the design, utilizing the space, and then in terms of the money asked for from the community, that I think would be negotiated. So that's, I know there was a request for the updated financials, and I was not privy to that information to be sent in. So.
Good. Does everybody have get a copy? You guys have any questions? We'll get back to Linda's, but since we have this in front of us, are there any questions on this? I guess in my view, layout's good enough. we as a city and as a council should not be in the restaurant design business as to what it looks like, as long as, you know, it's seating enough people to keep everybody in the black, and offering, what the public wants.
Absolutely.
So thank you for this. Councilmember Dunn.
In my perspective, this is the first due diligence of construction actually engaged in an architectural plan, which reflects the level of diligence that I haven't seen in any other bids. So to me, this really feels a solid position for this bid.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get back to get back in line here. Councilmember Ball.
Okay, well, first of all, there's been a lot of comments.
Can you get
about-
closer to your
Oh,
mic, please?
Sorry. That we shouldn't be in the restaurant business. We're not in the restaurant business. We're the landlords. Okay, so it's not, that's not even an accurate statement. And people have made their voices clear. I mean, clearly my view is to go with what the people want, and based on those emails, social media, people definitely want Saranac. And I think it's because we are so saturated in Mexican restaurants in this area. You can just go a little bit into the valley and there's one not too far on Sprague. I mean, they're everywhere. Additionally, we talk about how we want our community to be known, to have amenities. People are going to come from Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls to dine at Saranac because everybody likes it. And they don't want to drive to Spokane, particularly in the winter, to go to Saranac there. And I can't remember, I think it was maybe Councilmember Kurtz that said, and we don't know which, one of these restaurants wouldn't make it here in Liberty Lake. And my guess would be, it would be the Mexican restaurant because again, the saturation. I just think it'll look very short-sighted if we don't attempt to make some changes that make us a little bit more progressive. Same old just does not work for me. You know, we need amenities. So I am fully in support of Saranac for this project because I think they'll be the better choice. Obviously, you've done some work on this. You're not just going to fly in there and don't know what you're doing. You have a plan. And I think it's a better fit with a golf course too. I really do. This is one of those emails today I thought was kind of profound when he was talking about how magical, you know, Trailhead is to golf at, just to be there, just to soak up the view. And gosh, I just think that'd be awesome for you guys. Saranac.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Van Orman.
My apology. I missed the first meeting of any of the opportunity to go ahead and see the differences between the two. And I'm glad that we've got both restaurantees here. The question that I have are variety of food, catering, is that available for both? And food cart to the golfers. And I haven't heard from Saranac on that.
Yeah. So talking with Brandon, the owner of Saranac, the catering piece is absolutely a key part to this business. And I look at it as a three-headed monster for this restaurant. You got the golfers, you got the restaurant, and then you have the banquet hall right next to it. So you're serving those three types of people. We are proposing to add a walk-up window adjacent to the bar for the golfers. So when you finish 9, and I know it's only 9, but if it's your turn, you can do another 9, grab and go sandwiches right away and get on to the next 9 or the next course if you're going over to Meadowood or Liberty Lake. And so that is part of our idea of the design part. And I remember Brandon mentioned last time that he could have a cooler and set up right away and be open in relative short order to have grab and go food for the golfers through the winter, so long as the course was open. So, and I actually missed last meeting as well. I was at a golf tournament. So.
Great, thank you. Hold on, we're going to get to everybody before we go back again.
If I go one more, my apologies for not being able to pronounce, but I do want to get that information as well. Do you serve not just Mexican, but do you serve a variety?
So actually, we gone away from Mexican 70%. We have sandwiches, if you look at the menu, we have, they may have like a Cancun, California sunshine, but it's a sandwich, okay? There's like several sandwiches, salads. We gone 75% away from Mexican, just because we wanted to make sure that we satisfy the needs that you guys want here and the public. I don't know that the public will understand our menu. I don't even know if it was posted yet. But one of the things that I have to say, sir, excuse me, I am a little bit surprised that Saranac so much wanted by the council members, some of them here, and the owner's not even here. Okay, he's not presenting this guy as well as you are. He's not a restaurant owner. He's an architect. My son is not here. He has nothing to do with business. He's an architect. He doesn't know what to do on that. And so there's the thing. I'm not putting him down or anything, but to me, it's like either it's a done deal, I don't have to be there, or don't care. Okay. And to me, it has a lot to do with what's going to happen in the next 20 years. Okay. And that's just me, I'm not just like saying that out of my, I'm telling you for knowledge. I have opened 7 restaurants in the last 40 years, 37 years, and none of them have suffered the closing term. We always have prevailed. Okay, I have sold the last 4 restaurants because I'm retired.
And you're passing this down to your son?
No, my daughter.
Oh, okay.
My daughter runs the restaurant in Fort Lane.
Okay, and we're kind of getting into now,
Yeah,
we're
and
gonna
we're
end up
getting
in
into
this
the
back and
weeds.
forth forever. No, nobody's getting equal time, so I
You're right.
kind of like to,
Fine.
To
I
cut-
just want to say a couple more things.
sir,
Sir,
we gave
okay.
Saranac
I
another
did give you a
chance
chance.
because
Thank you.
because both, we had 2 presentations from you guys and I was giving Saranac their second chance. Thank you.
The only other question that I would have for Saranac
Yes.
is, would you be willing to go ahead and meet
Me.
the same deal?
I
as
don't think
what-
this is the gentleman to answer that question, Wendy.
Okay.
The bids we have, the proposals we have are the best and
Those are
final.
the best, okay?
And it looks like
it.
our city attorney would like to weigh in real quick.
Thanks, Mayor. Excuse me. I just wanted to point out that the decision tonight for the council is not awarding a lease. It's to award an opportunity for city staff to negotiate a lease with one of the providers. And those negotiations will take place at some point. If the parties agree to the terms and conditions of a lease, that will come back to the council for approval or not. So it's not a done deal of awarding a lease to someone this night, because that process still has to unfold in the negotiations between the city and whichever provider the council would like us to move forward with. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we haven't heard from Councilmember Spencer, Dunn, or Kennedy yet before we go around again. Councilmember
I'll chime
Spencer.
in. I guess to go along with what the attorney said, is there a reason why negotiations couldn't take place with both providers?
That's one of the options that council has, is to direct staff to negotiate with both.
It seems to me as though we're looking at numbers that are going to change anyway. So we don't really have firm numbers, but based on the information we've been provided, based on the presentations that have been made, and I feel like Chavalitas came out of the gates professional with all the information that we were asking for. They've presented a business case of success over a number of many years. Not only that, but they've listened to our feedback. They've come back to us with not a 100% Mexican cuisine. The other thing is when I'm looking at this, and again, because we don't know if these are real numbers or not until they've been negotiated, there's not really a good comparison here. I mean, we're gonna bring back more than double by going with Chavalitas if we're gonna go off of these numbers. In addition, we already have a business case for Trailhead having if we're going to say a Mexican restaurant that was successful. and golfers are gonna eat whatever's there. That's just a fact. If you go to Meadowwood or Liberty Lake, they're just gonna eat what's there. So I don't think that's critical. I don't think we need to be in the business of saying we're gonna provide amenities to draw people into the city per se. I think people are gonna come and golf and they're gonna eat whatever's there, and we have to look at the numbers. So it would be I would like to make a motion to engage both businesses in negotiations so that we can have some real numbers.
Well, we already have a motion on the floor. So we need to finish that up.
Okay.
Hold on. I still need to get to the people who haven't spoken. Councilmember Dunn.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate my observation that the bidder who has actually brought a construction partner to the table seems to be the most solid when we discuss business plans and I'd say viability for the action. So that, along with what I've perceived is the real desire for Saranac as the supplier. It's a little sad to hear they're just going to eat what's there, in my opinion, regarding restaurant choice. I would always want to say that we have the opportunity in front of us to actually make something more than that. So, and I think for what we've been seeing, what we've been shown, the Saranac bidder would present that. Okay.
Councilmember Kenny, we haven't heard from you.
No, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, thanks again for the two companies that come forward. I do appreciate that you're going through this agony tonight. Okay? I'm going to speak for myself, and the rest of the council will have to speak for themselves. I was sworn in to protect the assets of the citizens of Liberty Lake. That's where I'm vested. I didn't get elected to give them what my personal feeling is on what I want to eat and what I shouldn't eat. We own land within the city, and we're looking to try to get somebody to fill that. As far as I'm concerned, this is one thing and one thing only. It's an economic decision. It's not physical irresponsibility to look at these two bids, and one is double what will come to the city. And still, the council feels that we're going to take that $500,000. We're not so concerned about that, but what I am concerned about, what food I like better. What message are we giving to our citizens? What messages are we giving to these two business owners who've come to the city and want to do business here? And suddenly we revert down to, we're not looking at the economics because no one's talking about that. What we're talking about, well, I like it because of this reason. I like it because of that reason. Now, I'm very impressed and pleased that we had so many individuals email us and contact me personally to where my vote should go. But I also want to say that these people that did contact me, and there was numerous people, their preference was very, very strong. But I asked them this. One will return $1.2 million. The other returns $590,000. Unanimously, everybody switched. Because this is an economic decision for Liberty Lake. It's not an emotional decision. The emotion will cost us $500,000. I think it's obvious where I would go with my vote. Thank you.
Okay, now we've heard from everybody. We'll go back to Councilmember Ball, then back to Councilmember Kurtz.
You know, so much of what I've heard here tonight just doesn't make sense to me. First of all, you don't just eat what's there if you're a golfer. When I do golf at Trailhead. I only ate at Palenque once because I don't like the food. So that's not a fact that you just eat what's there. And there is no food at Meadowwood or Liberty Lake. There is no food other than, you know, a burger. So that's a false statement as well. Additionally, has anybody noticed here on tenant investment, Saranac is willing to put $264,000 more of their own money into whatever they're doing inside. That says something to me. That's a lot more than the $300,000 that Chavalitas is willing to put in. And again, these numbers, we don't know, because for example, catering, we don't know who's going to make more money for the city in the catering in the Rotary Room. My guess would be it's going to be Saranac. So much of this is speculative, but again, I don't understand why you'd want to put in a restaurant that already we have plenty of it here. We need to make this city a little bit more upscale. That's all I'm going to say.
We've got Councilmember Kurtz, and then we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I wanted to see what I would like to go along with Jed's motion. I know that we're in the middle of another motion, but we're talking about hypotheticals here, and I would really like to get down to solid numbers. And I feel like Jed's proposal of bringing back both negotiations is the best way to actually get solid numbers for us to make a good decision if we're solely going to base it on numbers and not opinions. So that's, I guess, my question about how we could go that direction.
Sean, you want to weigh in on that? We need to finish the first motion unless there's a motion to amend the first, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there's a pending motion on the table. So to the extent that the council wants to vote on that, fine. If someone wants to make a motion to amend that motion, it would need to be made, seconded, and voted upon.
Good. All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to get back to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. One, I may be mistaken here, but I believe it's a violation of our rules to accuse fellow council members of making false statements from the dais. So I think we all need to take a step back on that.
Don't make it personal. Thank you.
And, I just want to ask the question, what in the world are we talking about here? I mean, we say that we're not in the restaurant business. We say that we don't want to be in the restaurant business. And then we say in the very next breath that we want we don't want Mexican food in the city because we already have too many other Mexican restaurants. I don't get how those two play with each other. It doesn't make sense to me how we can, on the one hand, say that this is not about deciding a restaurant or food, and then on the other hand say we don't want any more Mexican restaurants in the city. And the second thing is we're starting to get a really bad reputation, in my opinion, of denying businesses in the city based on or voting against certain policies that come forward in the city based on whether we like or don't like the certain business that is being put forward. It happened a couple of weeks ago with another issue, and now we're talking about doing the same exact thing here tonight. Yes, we are the landlords. And so if you are the landlord, you don't look at a potential tenant and say, well, this tenant is offering me one thing, but I like this other tenant better because this other tenant is an old woman or is a young family. You most likely will make the decision based on the economics, as Councilmember Kennedy pointed out. You don't make the decision on anything else. And if we make a decision tonight to go with Saranac, again, food-wise, I'll be fine with that. I don't really care which food-wise restaurant we're choosing. That is not what's most important to me. But there's been one restaurant, there's been one proposal that has been here in every meeting that the owner has come every single time. That's Chavalitas. There's been one restaurant, there's been one proposal where they've actually changed the menu and changed their proposal based on the feedback of this council. That is Chavalitas. And to the point that the gentleman made earlier, it disappoints me that someone from Saranac isn't here tonight to answer more of our questions. The fact that we're hearing from the architect, and I appreciate this very much, it's very helpful, but I would like to hear from the restaurant owner. And it really is, it really is troubling to me that the only time we have heard from them was in about a 10 to 15 minute presentation that they gave at the last meeting. That's it. So thank you.
Okay, before I go around for more comments, I want to point a couple things out. First, at the first round of presentations, 75% of the staff at Saranac was down with COVID. So they were planning on being here, but there was an illness. So please take that in consideration. I will also point out that Chavalitas has also provided the renderings from their architect. I don't want people to forget that. 600,000, and I know I'm jumping around, but I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. $600,000 a year, the $600,000 difference over 20 years comes to $30,000 a year. While it's nothing to sneeze at, when you break it down to that, it's not as big of a difference when you look at it that way. And yes, we're all elected to watch out for the taxpayers' money, but we are also elected to listen to what the taxpayers want. Sometimes those are two different things. And it's hard, I get it. And again, you know, we're not, yeah, we're not in the design business. We're not in the restaurant business. But with regards to not just golfers, I know when we first started this whole thing, how many years ago now, before we even decided on a budget for Trailhead, I'm like, I'm really looking forward to a place where I can take potential business clients. I can take my family when they're in town visiting. And those are all things, and I don't have a vote. I'm just trying to point things out. Those are things that we all need to consider. So we've heard from 3 council members twice. Do council members Van Orman, Spencer, Dunn, or Kennedy want to speak a second time before we go back for thirds? Councilmember Spencer.
I just want to reiterate that Chavalitas, when they came to present to us the first time, they were ready to roll and they had all the information we were looking for. And when they came back the next time, they took that feedback and implemented it. I have the utmost confidence in their presentation and their history. Not just they don't just serve Mexican food across the restaurants that they've owned over the years. They've had multiple restaurants successful. They presented a case for how they're going to cater to the space next door, to the golfers. And the fact is, we have a beautiful building that people are going to come and eat at. And they presented a good cuisine. I don't know why it keeps going back to Mexican. He just reiterated the fact that 75% of the menu was changed according to our feedback. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Kennedy.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at these numbers again between the 2 companies. And once again, thank you folks for trying to help us out through this. Liberty Lake tenant improvement allowance, $530,000 that the city will take out of our taxes to put into that restaurant. The other company is going to put in $200,000. Excuse me, we're going to put in $200,000 for that one, but that restaurant's going to pay that back. And if I understand this correctly, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, the $530,000 that we're putting in, there's no payback on that. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
But that's all figured into the payback numbers over 20 years, correct, Kyle?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, Councilmember Dunn or Councilmember Van Orman? Second go around? Nope. Okay.
Knowing that I'm probably going to be the tiebreaker here. I thank you.
Well, there's 7 of you, so hopefully there's not a tie.
Yeah. But I definitely love the fact that both of you came to present. Thank you very much for that. And yes, I'm a business owner as well, and I have to look at numbers. So thank you. We'll go forward with the vote.
Okay, we got Councilmember Kurtz.
2 things. The first one is, I think one of the reasons why we have trouble getting people here is because it's 9:25 at night. And we're making a decision about that at 9:25 at night. So I think that might be why it's difficult to get people here generally. But I would like to make a motion to amend the current motion on the floor to negotiate with both restaurants.
All right, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion to amend the original motion to negotiate with both restaurants, and we have a second by Councilmember Dunn. Okay, discussion on that. I gotta start new notes. Okay, any discussion? Councilmember Kennedy.
I believe we've already had that discussion. How many times we're going to bring this back and to discuss the same thing? I was the one who brought up not make a decision in the last meeting to give Saranac the opportunity, because the other companies had already given a presentation, Saranac had not been able to do that. So they did come back with that on it. So we're going to kick this down once that proverbial can down the road again? No, let's make a decision.
Okay, Councilmember Kurtz.
So one of the things that everybody has talked about is having the firm numbers. And the one way to get the firm numbers is to negotiate the contracts. I don't want to make a decision tonight based on rough numbers from a guess, and just educated guess, and make the wrong decision financially for the city. So while I agree that it is prolonging the discussion, I would like to have firm, solid numbers. And it would also give the opportunity for, if we wanted to hear more community.
Hold on, Annie. Can you guys go out in the hall if you're gonna, excuse me, can you guys go out in the hall? Okay, go ahead, Annie.
Just that I really would like to have the firm solid numbers. Because it feels like that's what people are basing their decision on, and I am basing my decision on that as well. But unless we actually negotiate the contract, these are just the same numbers that we've had ballparked for a while now with other decisions that we've made. So I would ask again, just to allow the opportunity for the negotiation to take place.
Thank you. I think we have Mayor Pro Tem next.
I kind of wish this motion was made at the last meeting, because then I think it would have consolidated this a little bit. My only concern, well, I guess it's a question to follow up with Mark. And I think you mentioned this, or someone else meant, maybe there was the mayor who mentioned this, that this is not the final call. We are going to get numbers back and a negotiation back and a contract back from, if we were to proceed with either tonight, before we get a final approval in place, correct?
Right.
Right. All tonight's action item is intended to do is direct staff to negotiate lease with a potential vendor. We would, through that process, bring back a negotiated lease for your consideration at some point in the future.
And then when we get that negotiated lease, we'll be able to have these numbers more set in stone, so to speak? Hopefully.
At that point, yes, those would be in the lease. I would, a cautionary note, I don't know how much the numbers are going to change through a negotiated lease process. These all come from letters of intent to lease the property. Due diligence has been done. They may sharpen pencils a little bit, but I don't know that these are going to change fundamentally. Doug, do you have any insight in that?
Fundamentally, what you see in front of you is what was negotiated in the LOI.
Okay, well, with that as the answer, I would speak against the motion. Thank you.
We have anybody else on to speak about the amendment?
I did. May I say one thing?
Sure.
What the LOIs are for a 10-year lease.
Doug, could you?
Some of the,
Speaking of my.
the LOIs are for a 10-year lease. Okay. Some of the numbers that have been run were based on 20 years, but the LOIs and what we're moving forward with is a 10-year lease.
With an option.
With
for
options.
10.
Right.
With options, yes.
All right. Any more comments on the proposed amendments? Okay, not hearing any of those in favor.
Mayor?
Yes,
Mayor?
John, yes.
I don't recall, Mark, do you recall, and maybe Doug can answer this question, were the LOIs non-binding?
Yes, yes. The LOIs are non-binding. It's binding when we get to the lease.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Can you tell me what that means, non-binding? And then I guess the comment that was just made about some of these numbers are 20 years, some are 10. I think those kind of questions make me want to just do the lease negotiation, and whatever comes out of it is whatever comes out of it. Those will be the final hard numbers that we will sign or we will not sign.
So the non-binding letter intent means that just what that sounds like is the terms and conditions that are in the LOI are not binding on the parties. They will likely be the makeup of what goes into the lease negotiations, but certainly things could change. That's why you go through the negotiations to get a contract together. And you use the LOI as a basis to form that contract and what the terms or conditions will be in this lease. But that doesn't mean that someone could change their mind and say, we want something different because it's non-binding.
Sean.
And if I can address the second part of your question, Councilmember Kurtz, we ran a 20-year analysis because we had options in the contract. So we wanted to show, because there was variability in the escalators that were proposed, we wanted to show a full 20-year cash flow versus just a 10.
All right, Councilmember Paul.
Okay, and so I have a question. So LLIs is the improvements, correct? Or is it LL? What-
Tenant improvements. Is that
Letter-
what you're asking about?
LOI, letter of
Oh,
intent.
letters of intent.
Intent.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Sure. Okay, Councilmember Kennedy.
I hope this last comment. I appreciate your comment, Mr. Realtor, that in what it is, these numbers are these numbers. You don't really see them changing. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll just point out that if we were to run 10-year numbers, the case looks more bleak for Saranac. So Chavalitas is paying back their tenant allowance. So, thank you.
Okay. All right, there's no further comments. Those in favor of approving the proposed amendment.
Can you repeat the amendment?
I will, just give me a
Thank
second.
you.
Which is to move forward with negotiating with both entities, correct, Councilmember Kurtz?
Yes.
Okay, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, hold on, I've got council members Van Orman, Ball, Dunn, and Kurtz in favor. Those opposed? All right, so motion passes. So that's the amendment. So the amendment passes. Sean, keep me straight. So that's just, then we have to vote on the amended motion, correct?
Right. So correct.
Same, okay. All right, so if there's no further discussion, I will go. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I'm going to speak against the motion then, because I don't think that it's particularly fair to drag this out for another council meeting, because then what's going to inevitably end up happening is that both restaurants are going to come back. These arguments are going to happen again. We're going to have the same discussions. We just heard from the expert that we hired say the numbers aren't going to change. This is the final number. So I guess I'm asking the question of the 4 who voted in favor, what is going to change come the next meeting if we're being told by the person that we hired that it's not going to change?
Can I ask Mark to address what the process will be before anybody answers?
The process for negotiation?
Yeah.
Well, so we would have to sit down using our broker to assist with lease negotiations with both entities who have submitted letters of intent. And that could take a short amount of time. It could take a long amount of time. It could take a short amount of time with one and a long amount with the other. It really just depends on how that process goes. As you would expect with any negotiation of this kind.
And none of the 4 are obligated to answer Mayor Pro Tem's question, but if you would like to.
Rhetorical.
Councilmember Kurtz.
I mean, it's the only way to get the solid numbers, and I'm hearing that they might not change, but I heard the only way to get the actual numbers is to go through the process. So I'm willing to go through that process and see what the actual final numbers are. Perhaps they won't change, and this will, but one way or another, we'll have the numbers. We need the numbers anyway. We need the negotiation anyway. So I just feel like having the numbers from both of them can set everybody's mind at ease and set the community's mind at ease that this was a good investment that we made.
All right, if there's no further comments, I'll go back, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, unless somebody else wants to.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. And I'll just say to the restaurants, I'm sorry, we're doing this again. We're going to kick it down the road again. And we're going to make you come back to another meeting, it sounds like. And we're going to have this discussion all over again, I guess, on December 3rd. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Well, we need to take a vote on the amended motion. So those in favor of moving forward with negotiations with both entities, please say aye. Keep your hands up so I can get them. All right, we've got Councilmembers Ball, Van Orman, Dunn, and Kurtz in favor. Those opposed? Councilmembers Cargill, Kennedy, and Spencer. All right, we have got some direction.
Can I
Yes.
address, just to level set again? I would like to say that we will bring 2 negotiated leases back when we have those. It may or may not be on the 3rd.
And Sean, I saw your hand up, then it went away.
I was just going to say the same thing as Mark, so I'm good.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, next on the agenda are council comments. We're going to try to get through this before 10 o'clock. Are there any additional council comments different from what we've talked about and not applicable to our future workshops? Hearing none. Okay, no public hearings or appeals, no resolutions. We are up to ordinances. Second read ordinance number 306, Kelsey.
Ordinance number 306, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, levying the regular property taxes for the City of Liberty Lake, Washington in Spokane County for the year commencing January 1, 2025, to provide revenue for the provision of city services as set forth in the city budget.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance number 306.
Okay, do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Dunn. All right, any discussion on this ordinance? This is keep it with zero change to the regular property tax for 2025, zero change to the total collected. The rate should go down. All right, not hearing any discussion with it. Since this is an ordinance, we do take public comment. We have one public here with us in the chambers. I don't know if he'd like to comment on the property tax ordinance. Doesn't look like it. Do we have anybody online who would like to comment on the property tax ordinance? Nope. Okay. So not hearing any public comments, I will go to a vote of the council. Those in favor of approving ordinance number 306, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 7-0. We have 2 first reads.
Next is ordinance number 307, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, adopting the 2025 through 2030 capital facilities plan.
Okey-doke. And our next one.
Ordinance number 308, an ordinance of the City of Liberty Lake, Washington, adopting a budget for the period January 1, 2025 through December 31, 2025, appropriating funds and establishing salary schedules for established positions.
Okay, thank you very much. Kyle? Looks like you wanted to have
Yes,
something to say.
so real quick, in the inner summary statement, I have included 3 minor corrections that were universal. 2 were because those activities had already been completed in 2024. And then the third in our street operations expense was just some various tweaks based on some changes between when we put out the original proposed budget and then when we went through those line by line. So really, those are the only 3 that I have included in the change that you see adopted by reference in the budget summary by fund. And so as we proceed into the second read, presumably on December 3rd, I just want to clarify that there wouldn't be any additional changes or discussions as we look to adopt the budget.
I doubt that.
Exactly. So that's why I brought it up. So.
Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem.
So quick question, and this is more about it's kind of looking ahead to the next meeting as well, since we're coming up against the clock here. I'm wondering if we could move, well, a couple of things. Have a opportunity in the next meeting, perhaps under a workshop discussion, to do amendments. And then that way, once we get to item 15 on December 3rd of the second read, we will be able to at least proceed with a second read, or maybe just delay the second read to the next meeting if we need to, whatever. But I'm just trying to make it so that we don't have a situation come up at this December 3rd meeting where it's 9:30 and we're trying to get through any budget amendments.
So that kind of flows into our future workshops.
Yep.
So do we have anything slated for 6 p.m. At the next regular meeting?
Doesn't look like it.
So that would be my suggestion, and just come ready
Great.
with your proposed amendments. And then can we then at that time, Kyle, vote on those, or do we vote on those through the second read process? I'm trying to remember. I think we do it during second read. We would take them one by one.
Yes, and so normally we do those on the first read.
Yeah.
And so
We're not
we
ready tonight.
got up against the clock a couple of times
Yeah.
here. And so I would like to go through, I think we can go through those. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we can go through those during the workshop and actually motion and second. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's,
Great.
I think that would be preferred. So we have kind of our marching orders. And then I would like to delay the second read until December 17th, if that's the case. So I can go back and button those up and give you a final product.
Perfect. Does that sound, I just want nods of heads. Okay, I see Councilmember Kurtz with her hand up.
I just wanted to make sure that if we do it in a workshop in an hour, that that's enough time. And maybe people can give a sense of whether that will be enough time, because following along with what Mayor Pro Tem said, there's other things to be done at the meeting. And I just, if we need to have the other special meeting or whatever we're going to do, I just want to make sure we have enough time to go through things thoughtfully and have that discussion without sort of the pressure of the other stuff. Does that make sense?
So could we do 6 o'clock and then also continuing it at 7?
That's what I was looking at as
Yeah.
well, because right now, I know Lisa, there may be other things coming up on the 3rd, but there's nothing on the special workshop list for the meeting in the beginning of December. So
And I would respectfully say that the budget would hopefully take priority
Yes.
to get through that, and then
Yeah.
we could push everything else.
a
I'd
little
like to
bit.
delay it till the 31st if possible. Does that work for you?
Councilmember
Well, and I
Spector.
would just add that there's nothing that says we couldn't have a special meeting on the 10th.
Yeah,
If we did
correct. Yep.
exactly.
that between a 6
Yes.
o'clock and a 7
Even
o'clock.
if it's to get together for 5 minutes to prove it.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
Excellent.
So anything else on the
Thank you.
workshops? Oh, we've got, we had the ones tonight. We've got length of meetings coming up later in December. Recycling service, that's something new, facilities master plan, and then some other TBDs with some projected dates. So is there anything in particular anybody else wants to add to the workshop list? We're gonna be really busy between now and the end of December. All right, going once, going twice, going 3 times sold. Okay, well, where'd I be? What'd I do now? Okay, citizen comments, lone citizen. Welcome, Mr. Hamlet. And while he's coming to the podium, if there's anybody online who'd like to make a citizen comment, please send a note to our meeting host in the chat feature. You have 3 minutes.
Sorry for talking during your meeting, Mayor. You were right to quiet me down. My voice does carry part of the problem being a coach. I am a citizen of the city. I have a comment I'd like to make about the library and the direction it's going. I recognize the desire to have options on the table. I understand that completely. I also know that those 2 attempts to build a civic center and a library, I think that's a fantastic, if it could happen. How wonderful would that be for the city? But it's failed twice. The citizens did not want to add that tax burden to build those 2 things, which is why we are here where we are with the current building for the library. We needed the assessment says that we needed a new library that had more space for our community. So the decision was made and the building was built. And are not built, but purchased. Now, yeah, there are problems with that building a little bit to bring it up to code to get that. I get all that, but I'm not sure. I'm sitting here going, as a citizen, I'm going, what are we going to do to make a definitive decision moving forward? That is the most important thing in my mind, a definitive decision. And I think it's about time, after all these years from this 2018 assessment, to make that definitive decision. I'll leave that for on the library. Briefly on the restaurant, I will say that as a citizen, I am very disappointed in the way that whole thing has gone. I think that it's really not, I don't know that all the people knew the ground rules coming in. as a citizen sitting out here, I'm not sure they did. Just by the presentations that were made, I'm kind of hesitant going, man, did these guys really know what the ground rules were? Because some were here, some were not, some did have, some had, I mean, that concerns me a little bit. Okay, I think getting 2 negotiations, I think is probably a good decision because they don't really have to come back. They're going to negotiate. That's going to be presented to you. You're going to make your decision. I mean, that's the bottom line. So I think you've gotten all your information, kinda. I don't think you've gotten enough really from one of the presenters here. I'm out of time, sorry. But I am disappointed in that whole process. Wanted to express that as a citizen.
Thank you. All right, do we have anybody online? Okay. All right, so no more citizen comments. We don't have an executive session, so we are adjourned.